The clinic's dark secret. I woke in a room that hummed like a fridge left open. Bright light, cold air kissing damp skin, gel slipping down my belly in a slow, humiliating trail. I kept one hand pressed there anyway, palm curved over nothing, as if pressure could coax motion back. Please. The technician moved the wand again. Tiny clicks, a smear of gray on the turned-away screen. I watched its reflection in the metal rim of the blood pressure machine, a ghost of the image I wasn't allowed to see. The tech's jaw clenched, breath held. She shifted her grip and angled the wand deeper. My body braced around the hope. It cracked. The doctor came in with a soft voice and hands folded like he was carrying something delicate just out of reach. He angled the monitor toward himself. The screen stayed turned from me. He spoke carefully, building a cushion under each word, and every word sank. Sometimes the body makes a decision. Not your fault. We did everything right. He talked about options with phrases that sounded like doors. None of them opened. The light above us hummed. The air smelled like antiseptic and orange peel. If I looked at the ceiling tiles long enough, the tiny dots lined themselves into constellations. I tried to count them, because numbers didn't leak. Mark was already there. He took my hand and pressed it to his mouth and kept it there. He didn't ask questions. He didn't move while the nurse wiped away the gel in small, neat circles, like cleaning a surface before setting something precious down. The tech closed a drawer a little too hard. The thud echoed in my ribs. On the drive home, the rain came in fine threads, barely visible until it met the windshield. Wipers laid down a trembling path, and the world slid along it. Mark drove with both hands tight at 10 and 2. His eyes never left the road. The radio was off. My body felt like a house after a party. Cups and confetti and a sticky floor. All the guests gone. At a stoplight, a woman crossed with a toddler in a yellow raincoat. The child turned his face up and laughed at the sky. The sound cut through the glass like a clean blade. I pressed my palm into my abdomen hard enough to feel the pulse in my wrist. Home tilted. The air held a stale sweetness from the baby soap I had used to wash the blankets. In the nursery, the mobile hung still. Wooden stars. We had chosen them because they felt neutral and endless. The crib waited with a sheet I had ironed for no reason other than control. I touched the rail, and my fingertips came away, smelling like fresh paint and dust. Mark stopped in the doorway. His shoulders made a dark shape against the hall light. He looked at me the way you look at a cliff edge. Let's get you to bed. I want to sit here. Okay. He shifted closer, careful not to crowd the air. I lowered into the rocker. It creaked once, an old house sound. The chair remembered the promise of weight it was built to hold. I tucked my feet under me and stared at the crib until the smooth sheet blurred and came back. I can put some things away, Mark said after a long time. If you want. I don't want it to look different. It doesn't have to. I don't want anyone touching anything. Okay. Not even me, I said. I'm afraid if I move something, it won't find its way back. It? The life that was supposed to be here. He went quiet. He slid down the wall and sat on the floor beside me. Our knees touched. We breathed like divers timing a descent. The house made its private clicks and sighs. Somewhere outside, a car slowed, then kept going. I let my head fall back and watched the shadows move across the ceiling in the slow pulse of passing clouds. We didn't cook. We didn't turn on the TV. Mark poured water I didn't drink and handed me a blanket I didn't notice until it was warm around my legs. When the sun fell, it didn't take the light with it all the way. The sky left a bruise-colored strip at the horizon. The bruised strip faded. I turned the baby monitor on without thinking. The green light winked awake. A soft wash of static filled the space like surf in a shell. Mark watched me set the receiver on the dresser and didn't say anything. He touched my wrist. His thumb pressed the place where my pulse should have felt strong. We went to our bedroom like visitors. I lay on the edge of the bed and stared at the nightstand lamp. Mark didn't reach for the switch. "You want it off?" "Leave it." He left it. He lay on his back with his hands folded on his chest, like a man who had seen something sacred and didn't know where to put it. I watched the tiny muscle jump in his cheek. When his breathing evened out, I stared at the ceiling until the dots became a scatter of cold stars again. Sleep came in fragments, a nurse's shoe squeaking, a voice telling me to breathe, the sudden absence of a sound I'd never heard. I woke before dawn, with a raw throat. The light through the blinds was the color of old ice. In the shower, hot water stung. I leaned my forehead against the tile and counted slow. The steam erased my outline in the mirror. When I wiped a circle clean, a stranger looked back with swollen eyes and a mouth that couldn't remember its softness. In the kitchen, Mark had already taken out the trash. The door swung once, then fell quiet. He stood at the counter with a mug held in both hands, like he needed it to anchor him. He tried a smile, and it broke early. "Tea?" "I'm fine. I'll make some." He filled the kettle. He tied the tea bag string around the handle, and then untied it, frustrated by his own hands. The kettle took its time. The whistle startled both of us. "I'm going to the nursery," I said. "Do you want company?" "No." He nodded, a motion that said, "Both I'll be here, and I don't know how to be." Back in the nursery, the air held that soft, polite quiet of rooms created for sleep. I picked up the blanket draped on the crib rail and pressed it to my face. Powder. Sunlight caught in cotton. I sat and let the rocker move. The sound was a whisper that made me feel both held and mocked. The day slid by in inches. The neighbor's kid laughed in the yard, 2 houses down. A dog barked 3 times and stopped. A delivery truck rattled. Each sound arrived, asked for a place in the new map of things, and left. Around noon, a knock came at the door. 3 polite taps. I didn't move. Mark called my name from the hall without raising his voice. He opened the door. Laura stood on the porch with a casserole held like a ceremonial object, damp hair tucked behind her ears, eyes too bright. She peered past Mark until we made eye contact down the corridor, and then looked away fast, like she had invaded a church. "I made something," she said. "You don't have to eat it. I just wanted to do something." "Thank you," Mark said. "If you need anything, we're okay." "Okay." She hovered, wanting to say the safe line about time healing, and knowing it would sound like an accusation. She retreated, giving the kind of wave you give when you're backing out of a room with a sleeping baby. The door closed softly. Mark held the dish midair a moment longer than necessary, before setting it down. "It smells good," he offered. "I can't." "I know." "You don't," I said, not to hurt him, but because truth kept me upright. "But you're here." "I'm here." He pulled out the trash again, because it gave his hands something to do. He wiped a clean counter. He stacked the mail into fanned shapes. The small noises of these tasks were the only rhythm our house had. The afternoon drifted. We talked about nothing in thin threads. "We should try to sleep tonight." "Okay." "Do you want to call your mom?" No. Mine? If you need to. I don't. Dusk came with the slow dim of a dimmer, not the drop of a curtain. The nursery light made a small corona around the nightlight. The monitor's green dot kept its calm pulse. I imagined it was a tiny heart we were allowed to keep. At 2 in the morning, I was still awake. Mark's breathing reached that shallow groove where you know he's sleeping because he's trying so hard to do it. I slipped from the bed, the mattress sighing, as if relieved. The hall felt longer at night. The baseboard heater ticked. I touched the nursery door with my fingertips and pushed. Everything in the room glowed a little. The crib's white paint looked like the inside of a shell. Dust turned in the air like a slow snow. The monitor breathed static. The blanket weighted on the rocker. I sat and pulled it over my knees and set my feet where the floor was warm from the heat vent. My body recognized the position and ached for what it meant. I closed my eyes. The sound rose soft, almost not a sound at all, a thread of hurt winding up through the white noise. My eyes opened. My breath stopped. It came again, thinner, higher, the exact pitch my bones recognized from a future that had been stolen and yet lived somewhere inside me. I stood without feeling my feet. The rocker rocked once behind me. I crossed to the dresser. The monitor glowed its tiny, faithful green. I lifted it, warm plastic against my palm. A faint, wet cry spilled from the speaker, the shape of a mouth I knew. I turned the receiver over. The battery hatch clicked under my thumb. The coiled cord waited beside it like a white snake asleep. I followed the cord with 2 fingers to the wall. The plug lay on the floor. The prongs caught the nightlight and gleamed. The monitor wasn't plugged in. The cry broke and mended, fragile but stubborn. Milk-let-down ache swept me, sudden and cruel, like a phantom limb returning with a migraine. I pressed my wrist to my sternum. Tears came as if I had been pushed underwater. The hallway floor whispered. Mark filled the doorway, hair crushed flat on one side, t-shirt twisted. He took in the room like a soldier assessing where the threat might be. His gaze found the monitor. He watched the cord. He saw the plug on the floor. His mouth opened and closed. What is that? Listen. He moved closer in slow steps. He bent his head. The sound climbed and then sank into a hiccup. His eyes flicked up. For an instant, the fear in them wasn't for me, or even for us. It was for the laws that kept the world in a shape he understood. I hear it. He crouched and picked up the plug, held it between thumb and forefinger. He studied the outlet as if it might answer a question he didn't want to ask. He brought the prongs close to the slot. Don't. He paused. If you plug it in, it becomes normal, I whispered. I can't bear that. He straightened. He let the cord drop. The prongs clicked on the floor, a tiny, precise sound. The cry in the speaker hitched like a startle. We turned to the crib together without agreeing to. The sheet gleamed pale blue. Tiny silver dots scattered across it into a sky that refused to end. The mobile's wooden stars swung the smallest degree, the sort of movement you feel on your skin before you see it. Interference, Mark said, but the word came out thin. Another monitor, maybe. From where? Laura, someone on the street. At this hour. People have babies. So did we. The silence that followed had weight. A neighbor's car door thumped. A fox screamed far away, high and desperate, and the speaker crackled as if pulling the sound into its tiny body to translate it. The cry we knew returned, closer, then fading, like a child practicing trust and losing it, then trying again. I set my hand on the mattress. The cotton was cool. The shape of the crib made my arm look smaller, my hand younger. I pressed down, just enough to dent the sheet. Gravity made no claim. Still, a pressure grew behind my breastbone that felt like a small forehead leaning. Mark stood close enough that I could feel the heat of him. He lifted his hand toward my back, stopped with his palm hovering an inch from contact, then let it fall. We're exhausted. I'm staying. I think it's bad for you. It's the only thing I can do. He didn't argue. He stepped around me and set the monitor back on the dresser, with a motion so careful it almost hurt to watch. He turned the volume down one notch. The cry thinned to a ribbon. He adjusted the angle a degree, as if pointing an ear at a door. He looked at the plug like he might confess something to it, then left it where it lay. Come to bed. I can't. I'll leave the hall light on. Don't. He hesitated. Call me if you need me. I will. He stood in the doorway a moment longer. He looked at the rocker, at the stars, at the blue sheet with the silver flecks, then at me. A muscle jumped in his jaw. He turned and went. His steps faded. The hallway swallowed him. The house resettled its bones. I slid back into the rocker and gathered the blanket and held the monitor against my thigh, where its tiny hum could pass through fabric and skin and bone. The cry came again, gentle now, steady, like breath on my neck. The mobile creaked. One wooden star tapped another in a near-silent kiss. I watched the green dot and told myself it was a lighthouse, and I was not lost. I waited for a rise that my eyes could see and tried to believe in the thing my hands could not hold. Morning came thin and gray. My neck ached from the rocker, and the blanket had creased my legs like someone had ironed the pattern into me. The monitor's green eye kept its steady blink on the dresser. The plug still lay on the floor like a tooth. Mark leaned in the doorway, in a wrinkled t-shirt. He watched me stand and wince, and didn't try to fix it with a joke. You were gone when I woke up. I stayed here. Did you sleep? A little. His gaze caught on the monitor. He didn't look at the cord. He looked at me the way you look at a cliff edge. Come eat something. In a minute. Now would be better. He waited. He has always been good at waiting when it matters. I followed him down the hall. The kitchen tried to be kind. Steam from the kettle made a soft halo. He slid a plate with toast across the table. I held it to warm my hands, and then set it down again. The bread cooled without changing anything. I'm going to write. Work, not work. He nodded and took his coffee to the far end of the counter, as if distance could make room for whatever I needed to put in the air. I opened the laptop. It felt heavier than yesterday, like it knew what I wanted and didn't want the job. The support forum loaded in quiet colors. A stock photo of two hands cupped around a candle floated at the top, like a promise no one could keep. New posts stacked in a scroll of soft grief. I clicked new. The cursor blinked, patient and hungry. I wrote about the hospital light and the hush that followed the technician's held breath and the doctor's careful words that cushioned nothing. I wrote about the rain and the little boy in the yellow raincoat and the wooden stars over the crib and the smell of baby soap hanging in the room like a prayer someone forgot to put away. I wrote about last night, about the monitor and the cord loose on the floor and the sound that shouldn't have had a mouth. My throat tightened at that part. I left it in. I hit post and watched the words leave me, alive on their own now. Replies slid in fast, as if the page had been waiting. You're not alone. We lost ours in May. I slept on the nursery floor because the carpet remembered the shape of hope, and I needed to lie in it. I heard phantom cries for weeks. It's the brain looping what it expected to hear. Be gentle with yourself. We left the monitor on for a while. The green light helped. It was a heartbeat that didn't ask anything of us. Mark came without his mug and read my face, not the screen. He pulled out a chair and sat at the corner like a person taking a seat in a church pew he didn't believe in, but respected. You posted. Yes. That's good. It feels like letting strangers into the nursery. They've been there. A small number appeared next to my post title, a count without a label, as if pain could be tallied in neat boxes. We sat with the laptop between us. New replies arrived and arranged themselves. Have you looked into the retreat clinics? A friend went to one after 3 losses. She's pregnant now. They took care of everything. We did the Northbridge retreat. It felt like a resort. I hated that I liked it. It worked. It cost a fortune. I would have sold a kidney. I know this sounds strange, but there are places that specialize in complex cases, and they don't advertise. They reach out. They find you. I read that one twice. Toast went cold. The kettle hissed, then quieted. Mark watched me the way you watch a glass on the edge of a counter. A notification dot flared red in the corner of the screen. A private message waited. I clicked. Elena, we read your post with deep sympathy. We are a small private institute offering comprehensive fertility care for couples who have experienced loss. There are options beyond what you've been told. We believe you are a candidate for success. We offer a residential program in a calm, natural setting. We can provide services at no cost. If you're open to a conversation, reply with a contact number and a convenient time. We will reach out. A name sat under it, unfamiliar. The logo box didn't load. The email address was plain and forgettable, which somehow made it feel more serious. I copied the institute name into a new tab. The search returned almost nothing. A stale wellness aggregator listed it in a column with yoga ranches and juice fasts, no description, no link. A quiet square in a field of noise. What? I turned the screen toward him. He read. His face moved in 2 directions at once. Hope. Caution. No cost. I know. They found you through the forum. It seems like it. You didn't put your number anywhere. No. He sat back, elbows tight to his sides, like he was keeping himself from reaching across the table and taking the whole thing away. It's a scam. Maybe. They want your data. They didn't ask for anything except a call. In an office I can walk into, I can see diplomas on the wall. They have a logo. The corner of his mouth tried to lift, then didn't. I'll look them up. I already did. And almost nothing. That's worse. What if it's real? What if it isn't? What if it's the kind of place that whispers to the people sitting awake in the dark? He rubbed his thumb over the edge of the table. He stared at the fridge like it might open and give him an answer, along with something to chew. Call your doctor first. I'll message the office. He typed. We watched the phone like it was a small animal we hoped would come out of hiding. Minutes walked by on heavy feet. I went back to the forum and left a comment under my post. Has anyone worked with a private institute that reaches out like this? Did you feel safe? Responses arrived. We did something like that, but it wasn't free. Ask for everything in writing. Sometimes no cost means a donor or a study. Doesn't have to be bad. Make sure there's transparency. They said no cost to us. It felt strange, like someone had paid for us to exist. We have twins now. I don't know how to feel about that. The doctor's office called after 2, the line popping, and then her voice arriving with a careful softness I recognized. I put it on speaker. Mark stood near the table with his arms crossed, steady as a fence post. We told her about the message. We gave the institute's name. She paused. Breath in, breath out. I'm not familiar with them. That doesn't mean they aren't legitimate. There are many boutique programs. If you pursue it, insist on shared records. Get protocols in writing. If they mention a study, it should be registered. Send me anything they give you. I'll review it. I want you to be cautious. Would you ever recommend a place that offers everything for free? It would be unusual. It could mean a grant. It could mean a study. If it's a study, you are entitled to know everything about it. I don't want to discourage you. I want you safe. We understand. I'm here. Whatever you decide. The call ended. The room felt smaller, as if the conversation had used up the extra air. Study. I heard that too. You're not a lab rat. What if it isn't that? What if it is? I shut the laptop. Our faces ghosted on the black screen, mine thinner, his jaw harder. Both of us hovering inside the nursery's doorway reflected from the morning I hadn't yet left. Evening came with that slow slide from slate to charcoal. We didn't cook. I ate half a banana and 3 spoonfuls of soup because he set it in front of me and moved away to let me make the choice. He rinsed dishes that didn't need rinsing. He straightened the unpaid bills into tidy soldiers and then broke their lines and redid them. I'm going to answer them. Ask for a call. Tomorrow. Yes. 2 or 3. 3 is better. He stayed in the doorway of the nursery, not quite inside, not quite out, the way he had been since the hospital. He watched me set the laptop on the dresser next to the monitor, green dot steady, cord still on the floor. I opened a new message and kept it short. Thank you for reaching out. We would like to understand your program. Can we schedule a call tomorrow at 3? We want to know about your protocol and your residential setting. I read it once and didn't add any feelings. I hit send. The whoosh sound was small and final. The laptop screen went dark and gave me the room back doubled. My outline hovered over the little green eye. The doorway behind me turned into a black slice cut out of softer dark. In the glass, a pale blur gathered near the hall, the size and shape of a shoulder and cheek. The blur held, like frost catching light. I turned fast, and the rocker creaked, and the doorway was only a doorway. Mark, he answered from the bedroom. Yeah. Did you just walk past? No. I thought I saw. What? Nothing. It matters. Later. He stepped into view halfway down the hall. We studied each other from a distance that made us feel like polite strangers at a wake. They'll probably reply tomorrow. Good. What if they call tonight? They won't. You don't know that. You're right. He came closer. He reached for my hand, and I let him. His palm was cool and dry. We stood there until our arms complained. Try to sleep, he said. I will. He left me with the green blink and the hum. The curtain lifted and fell like a breath. I tried to read the forum, failed, closed the laptop, set it on the floor, and let my eyes close. Sleep brought a smell before pictures, that soft laundry scent, nested in cotton, that I had come to think of as hope. In the dream, I stood at the crib, and the sheet wasn't smooth anymore. A small curve rose under the blue with silver flecks. I lifted the blanket and my hands knew what to do. A face. soft mouth, heavy eyelids purpled with effort, warm skin. The breath tickled the inside of my wrist. I touched a fingertip to the bottom lip, and the lip parted and took me in with sacred seriousness. I picked him up, and his head found the hollow under my chin, and his body settled along my forearm like a sentence that ended where it should. The weight fit me. The rocker moved under us, slow and true. The world narrowed to breath and heat, and yes, he made that new sound that always feels like a promise. I looked to memorize the lines. The mouth opened wider. The gums were pale. A ridge. The ridge sharpened. A tiny scratch dragged across my finger. Not a bite. A test. I laughed out of joy that felt like a rip and brought my finger up to look. Dark wetness glinted. The scent shifted from milk to metal. I looked back, and the gums were now dotted with points so neat they looked placed there with a needle. The eyes opened. They caught the nightlight and held it and changed it into something that didn't belong to houses. I pulled him close so he wouldn't fall, and my body wanted to feed him, and my mind wanted to run, and my feet were tangled in the blanket, and above us, the wooden stars turned and knocked together with a tiny sound like teeth. I jerked awake with my neck at the wrong angle. A throb pulsed at the pad of my finger. I turned my hand. A crescent mark lay there, too clean for an accident. No blood. Ready to think about it. I pressed it to my lips as if that could erase shape. The room was a heavier kind of dark, the hour when the air learns the weight of itself. The monitor purred its low ocean. The green light watched with patience. The laptop on the floor had gone to sleep. Its lid caught a slice of doorway, and a slice of me, and the small green eye. Nothing else. I stood. The hallway boards recorded my steps in soft creaks. I ran cool water over the crescent until the skin around it turned pale. When I came back, the mobile had stopped moving. The curtain barely breathed. I opened the laptop. The screen lifted out of the dark. A new message sat in the inbox like someone waiting at the top of the stairs. We are here. The timestamp was wrong for our house and right for somewhere else. I clicked. 2 lines. We can speak tomorrow at 3 p.m. your time. A physician will call you. We are very sorry for your loss. No name, no logo, just insistence. The words arranged themselves with quiet confidence, like they were used to being obeyed. I read them twice. I touched the lid with my knuckles as if it were skin, and then closed it. The room doubled in the black. My outline flickered. The monitor clicked softly, the sound of warm plastic settling. The green light brightened a shade, dimmed, brightened again. The hush in the speaker changed the slightest bit, a softer undercurrent threading the static, the kind of sound you hear when weight shifts on a mattress. I stood with my palms on the crib rail and leaned in. I held still. The hush under the hush breathed. Not a sound yet. The promise of one. I stayed until my calves trembled and the sky began to trade black for ash, and ash for the pale gray that slides under blinds. Mark found me at dawn with the laptop closed and the green light doing its quiet work. He touched my shoulder. He didn't ask. He looked at my hand cradled against my chest, noticed the crescent, and watched my face without moving his own. They wrote, I said. When? Late. What did they say? 3, tomorrow. A doctor will call. He exhaled, a low sound that could have been relief or fear. Okay. We should make a list. Questions. Everything. We'll call your doctor after. And before. He nodded. He stood there with me and watched the empty crib like it might answer back if we were polite enough. I made tea because he still thought I should eat, and I drank it because he was trying to keep me in the world. The day unfolded itself with the too bright patience of a nurse. I didn't say anything about the reflection. He didn't say anything about the cord on the floor. We walked carefully over the hours until night would let us fall into the next part, where someone would finally speak to us from the other end of the line and tell us, in a human voice, what it meant to be a candidate for success. Morning moved slow. I made coffee I didn't want and wrote questions on a notepad. The pen scratched like it didn't approve. Mark lined up pill bottles into a neat row, a thing to control when nothing else listened. What is your success rate? Defined how? Add risks. What are your risks? Who funds you? Are you a study? If so, where are you registered? Data security. How did they get your name? Who gave them access? I wrote it all down. The words looked brave and small. We called the OB office as soon as it opened. The receptionist softened when she heard my name and squeezed us in for late morning. The waiting room had the same framed beach photo, the same quiet air shaped to hold good news. My skin felt too tight. Our doctor rolled in on the little stool and made herself shorter, less towering. Her eyes went to my face first. Tell me about last night. I wrote. The forum helped. I slept in the nursery. And today. We got a message from a private institute. They'll call at 3. Give me the name. She typed. She waited. The pause put a dent in the air. I don't have anything on them. That isn't unusual. Boutique programs pop up like mushrooms. If they mention a study, it should be registered. Ask for oversight, IRB, funding source. Ask for protocols in writing. If you pursue this, have them share everything with me. And listen to your body. If you feel pressure, stop. Could they have gotten our information through you? Not from us. If you posted on a forum, outreach teams skim those. Not necessarily predatory. Not necessarily safe. Caution. What would make you feel better about them? Transparency. Clean answers. Numbers that mean something. You should leave a call feeling clearer, not foggier. She printed a sheet, circled emergency numbers, and pressed it into my hand like a talisman. A mother pushed a stroller past the door. The baby's lip fluttered in a milk dream. My chest made a sound without my permission. The woman caught my face, made her own soft, and kept moving. At home, we set the notepad on the table between us, as if it could take the hit instead of us. 3 came like a door opening. Unknown caller ID. We put it on speaker and placed it between our elbows, like a small witness. Elena, Mark. Thank you for speaking with me. I'm Varric. Doctor. Yes. His voice was warm but cool at the edges, a hotel lobby voice, a gallery voice, the kind that expects to be trusted. What is your success rate? Defined how? If you ask marketing, 91% clinical pregnancy. If you ask me, 72% live birth across 2 cycles for cases like yours. We do not count biochemical pregnancies as success. What are your risks? Comparable to standard-assisted protocols. We manage stimulation conservatively. Infection is rare. Multiples are controlled. Safety first. Who funds you? A private foundation with a charter in complex fertility. Targeted grants. That is how we offer no-cost care to selected candidates. We do not sell data. We do not bill for services you do not receive. How did you get our names? A de-identified outreach cohort. Your forum post helped us locate you. We have not accessed your chart. Are you a study? We run several. Participation is optional. If you choose one, terms are explicit and oversight independent. If not, your care is the same. Different funding path. Registered where? Clinical trials. National boards. I will send identifiers and IRB details after this call. Send them. You'll have them shortly. He described the place before we asked. Residential, pine forest, a river with a sound like white noise in summer, private suites, on-site lab. Couples stay 2 to 4 weeks, minimal devices, no cameras. Why no cameras? Privacy. High-profile clients. And I prefer that our patients remember their time with their bodies, not their lenses. That isn't exactly an answer. It is the answer I have. When you visit, you can decide if it is enough. What makes your outcomes different? Selection, environment, monitoring, patience. We take fewer patients and we watch them more closely. I don't like failing. He used our names inside sentences, the way a palm brushes a shoulder when someone passes behind you. I should have bristled. I wanted to lean in. Why us? Because you still believe, and your profile fits a protocol that responds well. Mark stared at the phone. We aren't deciding today. No. See it first. If you like, a car can bring you for a brief visit. No needles, no scans, no paperwork. You may leave without even leaving your last name. 5 o'clock. Mark's eyes went to the clock. Too soon. My day opened. A cancellation. Send the study numbers. In your inbox in 5 minutes. The line went quiet, as if he had stepped back without hanging up. Then it clicked. The kitchen remembered its own hum. We looked at each other the way you look at someone in the moment before a jump. His email arrived before our doctor's reply to it. Links. 2 studies. 1 on stress-modulated endocrine support. 1 on endometrial priming. Registration numbers traced to a private board I didn't know. The names sounded real in the boring way real things do. We forwarded everything. Our doctor answered in minutes. The registrations exist. Proceed with caution. If you go, do not consent to procedures. Keep it verbal. Send me anything they give you. Trust your instincts. Do we go? We go. Only to look. Only. No signatures. No scans. No blood. Nothing we can't shut down by standing up. Yes. The car arrived at 5. Black paint. Neutral driver. He knew our names without asking for them. The city fell away. Houses thinned. Pines took over. Gravel found our tires and made a crisp sound, like biting into a cold apple. The air through the cracked window smelled like rain that hadn't decided yet. The gates were pale wood and too simple to be cheap. They opened with no show. Inside, hedges were trimmed into shapes that pretended to be natural. The building appeared in careful pieces, pale stone, long glass that didn't glare as the day thinned. It looked like a spa that rented out its soul to a lab on weekdays. The door opened before we reached it. A woman in the non-uniform uniform offered water with lemon. Music that wasn't music moved the air in gentle patterns. Couples sat in low chairs, faces polished by private crying. A man stared at his shoes. A woman wrapped a scarf around her wrists and pressed her fingertips together like she was counting, without numbers. Mark didn't touch the water. I did. The glass left a ring on my palm that smelled like citrus and something faint under it, like a coin. Dr. Varick will be right with you. We stood at the glass and looked out at the lawn sloping toward darker trees. A path curved left. Light along its edges said safe without promising it. Somewhere behind the hedges, A river made a quiet sound, like a machine breathing easy. A door opened behind us. The voice from the phone arrived attached to a man who moved like careful music. Tall, dark hair smooth, a gray suit that refused to be fashion. No white coat. His eyes caught the last of the daylight and broke it into a mercury sheen for a second too long. Elena. Mark. Thank you for coming. He offered his hand. Cool, not wet, not warm, measured. The smile lingered past the correct moment, like a note held to find the exact resonance of a room. We can walk, if you like. The air is good. We followed him down a corridor hung with photographs of trees that were almost real and then too perfect. No insect bites on leaves, no bird caught mid-flight by accident. Just trunks and light, the mess removed. Frosted doors with numbers, no names. My face flashed back at me when I looked for labels. He pushed a bar, and we stepped into air that had saved a little warmth from the day. The path crunched. The lodge building sat low with decks facing the trees. He talked about quiet, schedule, rest, food when hungry, sleep when the body begged, no procedures after dark. What about phones? Call your family. We ask that you avoid endless scrolling. Light matters, so does attention. Cameras. We discourage photos. We are boring after 10 pictures of leaves. We reached a low fence, more suggestion than barrier. Beyond it, the land fell away, and the river showed itself. The sound threaded the space in a way that felt designed. You can hear it. I can. It helps at night. On the walk back, the light went thin and cool. Inside, the hall was brighter than the hour allowed. He paused at a door with a frosted pane. In here we have first conversations. Water, chairs, nothing else. You ask. I answer. You leave. From behind the glass, something soft rose. Not music. A set of notes arranged to feel like a lullaby. It drifted and settled and drifted again. Mark's eyes ticked. Varric didn't turn toward it. He watched us register it. What's that? A sound conditioner. Calm helps. He opened the door. The room was what a brochure would promise. 2 chairs, a small table, a window, a white device on a shelf with a tiny speaker that stopped making its sound once we noticed. He gestured toward the chairs. We didn't sit. He did. You can ask me anything. Not yet. Paperwork. When does that appear? When you choose a cycle, not tonight. Records. We keep them. My team sees them. Your physician sees them if you say yes. No one else. A sound from deeper in the building answered itself. Quick, high, real. A baby's cry clipped short, as if settled by a warm hand. My skin went cold under my clothes. Mark's head turned sharp. Varric's expression didn't change. His eyes shifted, not toward the cry, toward my face, to read what the sound did. We have families on site. Most are in private suites. We maintain their privacy. You let newborns stay. Yes. Why? They go home healthy. Sometimes they visit before they leave. It is good for morale. Whose? Everyone's. I set my palm on the table to keep the room from tilting. The wood was warmer than it should have been. I thought of the monitor's green eye and the unplugged cord. I thought of the way the mobile's stars sometimes moved, even when the air didn't. We didn't sit. He didn't press. He stood and led us back toward the lobby, at the same measured pace, unhurried, attentive, as if he had learned how to mimic the cadence of trust. At the entrance, the driver waited by the open car door. The receptionist adjusted her smile by 1 degree to acknowledge that we were leaving without signing anything. A couple stood at the desk with a clipboard between them. The man held the pen as if it were heavy. The woman's fingers rested light on his wrist. Now. Wait. Varric stopped half a step behind us. His presence altered the temperature of the space without pushing it. You can think. I won't call without permission. If you choose to return, text the number we sent. We hold a place for 72 hours. After that, the place goes to someone else. There is demand. He offered his hand again. I took it. The cool slid over my skin and left no residue. He let go the exact instant I did. The smile held for a breath after. His eyes found the light and did their mercury trick one more time. The effect was subtle in the daylight. Not subtle now. We stepped into the evening. The air tasted like river and lemon and the faintest metal edge. The car door closed with a soft thud that felt too final. The gravel gave us back to the road. The trees made a tunnel, and the tunnel stitched itself behind us as the car moved. Mark watched the dark ahead. We didn't sign. No. We didn't give them records. No. We don't do anything until she looks at their protocol. Yes. My finger found the crescent mark from the dream and pressed it until the pain sharpened into a clean line. The phone buzzed in my pocket. A number I didn't know but recognized. It was good to meet you. Rest tonight. Streetlights cut our block into sections. The house looked thinner, planed down while we were gone. Inside, the hallway held the same cool air. The nursery door waited. I stood in it and looked at the blue sheets scattered with silver dots, the wooden stars still and bright in the nightlight, the rail pale as bone. Mark stood behind me. He kept his voice even. Tomorrow we call her. We don't let that place think for us. We won't. I mean it. I know. We went to bed without talking anymore. The house sorted its night sounds. A pipe breathed. The heater clicked. Far away, a car door shut. Sleep came like a hand on my head. In the last thin slip of wakefulness, I felt it. The small hush that had threaded the monitor. The weightless pressure of an empty crib, learning the rhythm of a breath. In the doorway of my mind, a tall figure stood very still under a lobby light and lifted the corner of a smile a fraction too late. His eyes caught a light that didn't exist in our room and glinted like something alive in water. I opened my eyes to the dark and listened. The house held its breath with me. The green dot in the nursery glowed behind a wall that was only drywall and paint. The silence was not empty. It waited, poised, like the second before a voice arrives on the line. Morning came in thin slices through the blinds, the kind of light that makes dust look like a slow snowfall. I lay still and tried to count my breaths. The house held that same careful silence, as if it were waiting for a verdict. In the nursery, the green dot would be doing its steady, faithful work behind the wall, a little eye refusing to close. My phone on the nightstand lit up when I touched it. The message from last night waited at the top. It was good to meet you. Rest tonight. I stared at the period at the end. Rest tonight, as if rest were something you could order and be served hot in a bowl. I listened for Mark's breathing. It was even, controlled. When I shifted, he turned toward me, eyes already open. You're up early. Couldn't sleep. Did you dream? I shook my head even though I had. The dream had left only a shape behind, a hollow warm spot in the center of me, where the weight of a child belonged. I slid out of bed. The floor was cold in that way. Only a hallway knows how to be. In the nursery doorway, I stopped. Nothing had moved. The blue sheet with silver dots. The wooden stars of the mobile, the nightlight making bones out of paint. On the dresser, the monitor's green pulse, the cord still in the drawer. "You don't have to stand there," Mark said from the bed. "I'm not standing. I'm looking. Is there a difference?" It felt like there was. I went to the kitchen and filled the kettle too full. Water sloshed over my hand, and the sting woke me all the way. By the time the whistle started, Mark was at the table with the notepad between us, the same one we had used yesterday to list questions, as if paper could make the world answerable. "We're not doing anything today," he said. "Just because someone wants us to move fast doesn't mean we have to." "I know. Do you?" I poured water and watched steam climb. He rubbed at a spot on the table that wasn't there. "We can call your doctor again," he went on. "We can slow this down. That place is designed to make people feel like saying yes is a form of relief. It felt like relief while we were there. That doesn't make it good." I opened my mouth. The phone buzzed. The screen flashed an unknown number. We looked at it like it had rolled a grenade onto our table. I pressed accept and set it down between us on speaker. "Elena. Mark. Good morning. Varric." Mark's shoulders went tighter. I felt it in the air. "Good morning," I said. "I promised I would not call without permission. You sent permission when you asked for identifiers. I hope it's all right that I check on you." "We're here," Mark said. His voice was flat in a way that meant he was building a wall, brick by brick. "How do you feel today, Elena?" "Tired." "Of course. May I answer questions you did not think to ask yesterday?" "We have a lot," Mark said. "I like a lot. It means you are thinking." There was a pause, and I realized he was letting us decide where to start. It felt rehearsed, but the rehearsal was skillful, like sitting with a musician who can play the exact tempo of your breath. "We're not committing to anything," Mark said. "We might come back for a conversation. That's all. A conversation is always welcome. You left yesterday with more clarity than most. I find clarity grows when it is given attention." "There is a baby in that building," Mark said. "There are several. Why?" "Because they exist. Because you want people like us to hear them." "Because they exist," he repeated. "Sometimes a thing is very simple, and we are tempted to make it complicated to excuse our fear. I don't need to manipulate you, Mark. Your life is already doing that. All I can offer you is a place where the manipulation stops." My mouth was dry. The line hummed. The house hummed. The kettle ticked as it cooled. "If you return for consultation," he went on, "you will sit with me for exactly the time you need. You will walk the grounds again if you wish. You will meet a nurse you didn't meet yesterday. You will read a consent form and decide whether your hands feel steady when you do. I will be no closer to you than I was yesterday. I will not touch you without your permission. The choice is yours, but it is a choice that softens when you look at it closely." That last sentence threaded under my ribs and tied a small, neat knot. I looked at Mark. He watched the phone like it might blink. "We'll come for a consultation," I heard myself say. "No promises," Mark added. "No promises," Varric agreed. 4 o'clock is quiet. If that is convenient, I will have the desk expect you. If not, another time. 4 is fine. Thank you. Eat something today. The body measures hope in calories more than in prayers." The line clicked. The room expanded, then felt smaller, as if we had used up a good portion of the air scheduled for this morning. "You said yes." "To a conversation. You heard him. They expect hands to feel steady when they sign. That's a script. I know. We don't have to go." I know. Say it like you mean it. I set my cup down. He saw my hands tremble and turned away so I didn't have to see the look in his eyes. We did not fill the hours well. He tried to work, then answered emails with blank eyes and closed the laptop as if it had told him a secret he didn't want. I sorted a drawer that didn't need sorting. I put the soft blue blanket in a laundry basket and then took it out and folded it and put it back on the crib rail. I stood in the yard and looked at Lara's house and felt both cruel and small. The day chose a color between white and gray and stayed there. At 3:30, we put on our coats like armor. The drive felt shorter, as if the road decided to lose distance in exchange for time. The pines gathered again. The gravel started. The gate opened without asking who we were. Inside, the hedges had been trimmed into obedience since yesterday. Or maybe I had only now learned to see the right angle under the leaf. The receptionist lifted a hand before we reached the desk. "Welcome back, Elena and Mark. Dr. Varick will be with you shortly." She didn't ask us to sign in. The lemon slices waited in their clear water like they had never been used. In the low chairs, couples sat with their knees parallel, not touching, their hands folded in their laps like students waiting for their names to be called. A woman in a cream sweater looked up at me and smiled the way people smile at funerals, wanting to be kind to the raw thing in the room. A man in a blue jacket was telling the receptionist something about sleeping better here. He used the word miracle softly, as if he had borrowed it and wasn't sure he had the right to. "Do you feel that?" Mark murmured. "What?" "The room. It's calibrated. To what?" "To people like us." I didn't answer. I watched a nurse cross the lobby with a tray of small cups covered in foil. Another nurse took one and walked to a man in a corner chair. He peeled the foil back with reverent care and drank. When he finished, he pinched the cup and handed it back, like it contained a piece of him he had agreed to donate. Varick appeared from the hallway, as if he had been made by the light opening a door. His suit was the same gray, or maybe he owned 6 that were identical. The smile arrived a breath late again, and held for the exact amount of time I would learn to expect from him. He felt like a rhythm, already mapped. "Shall we?" He led us not to the little room with the sound machine, but to a longer office with a window that framed the river far off like a strip of film. A table, 3 chairs, a glass of water set out for each of us, as if someone had measured our thirst before we arrived. He gestured to the chairs and waited until we had chosen before he chose his. "We're only here to talk," Mark said, before anything else could happen. "Good. Talking is underrated. I find it arranges the furniture inside the mind." He slid a paper across the table. It had the kind of careful font that promised nothing was being hidden, while hiding quite a lot in the white space between lines. I recognized the shape of consent even before I read the word. My stomach tightened. He didn't push it toward me, just let it rest, like a calm animal between us. "May I ask how you slept?" "I stayed in the nursery," I said. "That often helps." I didn't tell him about the way the monitor's green dot had looked like a lighthouse in heavy weather. I didn't tell him how I had pressed my hand to the blue sheet and tried to feel the thin lift of breath that my dream had promised. I didn't tell him about the crescent mark on my finger, because I had convinced myself it had been a dream until I saw it again this morning in the bathroom light. "What happens if we say yes?" Mark asked. "Exactly. Exactly is hard. The body is less exact than our words. But if you decide to begin, we do a short round of preparation therapy. We draw blood. We look where it is polite to look and where it is not. We offer you support for sleep. We give you a schedule that is not a prison, but a suggestion. We ask you to rest. We ask you to walk in the trees. We will ask you, Elena, to imagine holding what you want, not once, but often. And then, if your numbers and the calendar and your spirit agree, we proceed. That's vague. It's honest. Honest and vague are cousins. He slid a pen across the wood, but not to me, to the exact middle of the table, so it wouldn't feel like a shove. The consent paper sat there like a folded wing. On the other side of the window, the river showed a line of white where it tripped over itself. I focused on that. It sounded like the monitor's hush, even from this far away. "We'll need time," Mark said. "Take it. We'll read this at home. You can read it here too, if the light is kinder." I reached for the paper. My hand trembled, the way a full glass trembles when you carry it too fast. I flattened my palm on the page first to steady it, as if I could press the verbs into place. The first paragraph was what they always are, an introduction to a program that sounded like a summer camp for the exhausted. The second paragraph used the word risks and then divided them into categories, small enough to fold themselves into my pocket. The third paragraph described privacy in a way that made me wonder what it meant when a place promised to make you invisible. "You don't have to sign," Mark said. His voice was gentle fishhook. "I know. You can put it down. I know." He watched me read the page a second time. Varric watched me read him. He didn't fidget. He did that thing with his attention again, letting it rest on me the way a hand might rest on a shoulder if it had permission. I had the reflex to lean into it. I hated that reflex and loved it for how human it was. "My hand," I said. "What about it? It hurts." "Where?" I lifted my left hand. The crescent on my finger, the place from the dream, had paled to a fine line, but a pain like a paper cut had found its way into the skin at the base of my thumb. It stung in small pulses. I pressed the spot and felt a pinprick of heat. I thought of teeth, for no reason I wanted to admit. "You're shaking," Mark said. "I'm fine. We can leave." I kept my palm on the paper. I thought of the forum replies that had stacked up under my post, the little islands of strangers offering their lines across a river I could not cross alone. I thought of the green dot blinking its own patience. I thought of the hospital light turned away. I thought of the cry behind the frosted glass and the way it had cut me clean. "You are under no obligation," Varric said. His voice had the tone of a person placing a child back in a crib with care. I signed the preliminary form that only allowed my records to be shared. Not full consent, not a lock, just the first hinge of a door. The pen moved with a steadiness I didn't feel in my arm. As the tip scratched my name, the sting in my hand sharpened, a bright little bite where no mouth was. I did not pull away. When I finished, I set the pen down like a creature that might jump. My breath came back in short pieces. "You can tear that up any time," Mark said. "We can. We will, if we need to." Varric nodded as if we had scored a point. He slid the paper toward him without looking at it, then placed it in a folder that closed with a soft sound that made me think of a seal setting, wax cooling. "Would you like to walk before you go?" "The light is good at this hour," he said. We followed him down a hall where a woman in a pale robe walked with bare feet. Her toenails painted a color that looked like seashells. She didn't meet our eyes, but her mouth moved in a private prayer. At the end of the corridor, I heard again the thin music that wasn't music. It wrapped the space like an idea no one wanted to name. On the lawn, the air had gone softer, one of those brief spring pauses when the day gives a little back before it gets cold again. The path curved toward the hedges and away from the glass. A couple sat on a bench under a tree, their heads leaned together, not quite touching. As we passed, I caught a snatch of their murmur. "It's working. I can feel it. I can feel him." I looked away so I wouldn't be a thief of someone else's hope. The river's voice came up through the ground and into my shins. It sounded like the monitor again, that steady hush, a promise that something kept going whether we watched it or not. "What now?" Mark asked once we were closer to the driveway. "Now you go home," Varric answered. "You eat. You sleep. We do nothing that requires needles or machines until you ask. If you ask." He stopped walking and turned, so we had to turn too. The last light made his eyes do that flicker thing again, as if they had a layer that caught and folded brightness. In a way, mine did not. "I am not your answer, Elena. I am a door. You decide whether to walk through." The car pulled up as if someone had been watching our feet. The driver stood ready with a hand on the latch. Varric stepped back the smallest distance, respectful, like a guest who knows when to leave a kitchen. I had the strange urge to thank him for not touching me. I did not. I got in the car with a careful motion, as if sudden moves would startle the air. On the way out, the hedges looked taller. The gate opened with that unbothered grace that belongs to places that expect to be obeyed. The pines took us back. The road gathered itself into a ribbon that made sense to our tires. We didn't talk for a mile. When we did, we spoke at the same time and stopped and waited for the other. "We can still say no," Mark said. "We can. I need you to mean it." "I do. Do you?" I watched the trees thin and the first bricks of the city line up. I thought of the way the pen had made my name into a dark line that would now live in a folder with other lines, a small black spine among many. I thought of the pulse in my hand. I thought of the river. I thought of the cry. "I mean it," I said. And I meant that I would say no until I could say yes with my whole mouth. At home, the hallway smelled like our hallway. The nursery glowed like it always did. The green dot blinked with its sane rhythm. The blue sheet waited. The wooden stars held still. For a moment, the ordinary of our house felt like a kind of mercy. I went into the kitchen and opened a cabinet and stared at a row of mugs as if I could choose a future by picking the right color. Mark put the notepad back on the table. He wrote the date at the top, as if he were starting a new page of us. He drew a line down the middle and labeled one side reasons to slow down and the other reasons to try. He left them both blank. He set the pen next to the paper and walked to the sink and washed his hands like something might be on them that needed to go down the drain. I stood in the nursery doorway and watched the green dot until the rhythm folded into my breath. The sting at the base of my thumb came and went, a tiny tide. I pressed my hand flat on the rail. The paint was cool and clean. A name waited in my mouth like a seed I wasn't ready to say. I turned off the light and left the door open a crack, the way you leave it for someone who is asleep and might wake and need you. When I got into bed, Mark rolled toward me. We fit into the bracket of each other without trying. For a long time, we didn't speak, because there were too many good arguments in the room, and none of them were strong enough to do the work. "We can go slow," he said at last. "We can. Promise. I promise." His hand found mine under the blanket. The pain at my thumb eased, as if it had been listening and had decided to be kind. My eyes closed. The last thing I saw was the thin slice of hallway light under the nursery door, the exact width of a hope that chooses not to announce itself. I woke sometime after midnight to the far-off sound of water. Not the heater, not a pipe. The river had followed me home. It moved through the air like breath drawn through teeth, steady, soft, relentless. For a second I panicked, thinking I had mistaken our house for another place. Then I realized the sound came from inside me, from the place where want lives, from the place where a promise turns itself into a heartbeat before there is anything to carry it. I lay still and waited for it to fade. It did not. It settled. It learned my rhythm. It stayed. The river was still in me when I woke, a hush threading through the ribs like someone breathing close to my ear. The house had the patience of a waiting room. Mark watched me from his pillow. His hand found mine under the sheet and pressed the spot at the base of my thumb like he could smooth a bruise out of existence. "We can cancel." I shook my head. "You're not a hostage. I know. Eat something." I tried. 2 bites of toast. Tea. The tea cooled before I remembered to swallow. At 10, my phone buzzed with a schedule in clean, unbothered lines. Preparation therapy, light breakfast, hydrate. A nurse named Mira will meet you at noon. Mira. Names are supposed to make it feel safe. We drove early, as if being ahead might keep the place from catching us off guard. The hedges looked newly disciplined. The lobby had been reset like a stage. Lemon slices floated like moons in a glass pitcher. Soft music wasn't music at all, just notes arranged to tell you your pulse would obey. A small woman crossed the room with quick, precise steps and a braid pinned tight against her head. Her eyes were the green of old glass. "Welcome back. You must be Elena. And Mark." I nodded, still wearing my coat. She offered a covered paper cup. "Electrolytes. It tastes like nothing. It helps like something." I peeled the foil. No scent. I drank and felt the liquid slide down my throat in a straight line, as if the path had been cleared for it. She handed Mark one. He kept his, unopened. "We'll start with blood work. Nothing dramatic. Then supplements. Then a rest." She moved like she had practiced until motion became air. 2 other couples drifted by, untethered but somehow kept from floating. A woman in a robe and sneakers smiled at a spot just to the left of my face. The man with her had his fingers tucked inside his sleeves, like he didn't trust them. The lab had too much air to hold a smell. A chair angled at a window. Mira tied the tourniquet smoothly. The needle went in with the certainty of a key finding its lock. Dark red filled the vials, private and obedient. She labeled them in a neat, narrow hand that made my secrets look like they belonged to a clean alphabet. "Sleep has been difficult." "How do you know?" "Your eyes." She taped gauze, gentle and exact, as if she were setting a wing. On a tray sat little bottles, pale labels with clever fonts. "Supplements," she said. "These are simple. Iron, B complex, omega. This is less simple, a support formula. It steadies endocrine response. You'll feel warmth. Don't be afraid of that. Less simple. Custom. Legally boring. Extremely boring. Boring is underrated." 2 capsules the color of weak tea. I swallowed. Warmth unfurled in my stomach like a small candle catching a second wick, then a third. My skin noticed first, then my mouth, then the crescent at my thumb, a hot coin pulsing once. "You may flush." "I am." "Good. That means you're where you are." "What does that mean?" "It means you're in this room and we are with you." She said it like a gardener naming a seed. Down the corridor she opened a door with her hip. The room inside was pale and soft, the bed a cloud with straight edges, a chair at the window, a small table with a carafe that didn't sweat. There was no art. The absence felt deliberate. Rest an hour. If you sleep, good. If you don't, also good. Someone will check on you. If you want to walk later, walk. You can leave any time. This is a place, not a command. She closed the door without jarring the air. I lay down and felt the bed take me in like I weighed less than yesterday. Mark sat in the chair and tried to read the folder, then stared through the paper and watched the window instead. You're warm. I know. You look different. I tried to smile and made a smaller face instead. He turned my hand and checked the gauze as if it might betray something. Do you feel all right? Light. Like my bones forgot they were supposed to hold me down. That doesn't sound all right. I closed my eyes and drifted to the edge of sleep, where the mind can walk around without doors. The not music found me there, and wove under the river sound inside my chest. I didn't mind. The patterns held like a hand you can put your weight on for a minute. When I opened my eyes, Mark was close, watching without panic, his expression open the way it gets when he's chosen to let me choose. You slept. A little. You twitched. Dreams. He let me keep them. Mira slid in, as if she'd been waiting just outside the seam of the door. Any dizziness? No. Any anger? What? Sometimes a match-head feeling. It passes. I don't feel like a match. Good. Walk. We followed. The hallway had more bodies now, but the speed of motion never exceeded polite. A fragment of speech slipped out of a doorway. It's like being on the far side of a pain I didn't know had an end. Only a shadow of a mouth was visible. The path outside took us into pine shade and the clean green of needles. The river moved with an intent that had agreed to be civilized. Stones shaped its voice. A bench waited where the curve invited you to sit. Mira left us there with a nod, shaped by having nodded this way 1,000 times. We sat. The water did its job, loud enough to fill the spaces that thought tries to invade. I don't like how good it feels here. I know. Is it good? Or is it good at pretending? He didn't answer. On the far bank, a shape held still. A tree, I thought, until it shifted and became only a tree again. We went back when the air cooled a degree. In the lobby, a nurse crossed with a tray of covered cups. She paused at the elevator. A petal of foil had curled back on one. The liquid inside wasn't clear. It was red, too dark to be fruit. Her hand moved fast, pressed the cover down, and angled the tray away. Her eyes met mine for a heartbeat, steady, unembarrassed. Did you see that? What? Nothing. Lunch was soup that tasted like patience and grains cut exactly into chewable squares. Apple crescents stuck their pale moons to the plate. The water had no smell. A woman across from us ate as if she were catching up on years of neglect, one careful bite at a time. This place isn't normal. Maybe normal is what trapped us. He looked at me like I'd used a weapon I wasn't strong enough to carry. Mira found my pulse after, counted it without using a clock. Any dreams? Yes. Do you want to tell me? A crib rocking by itself. Someone whispering my name from a corner where no one stood. The river read. She nodded once like she was matching items to a list she'd written in her head. We can adjust night support. No sedatives. Drift only. I don't want to be pushed into sleep. We won't. And the warmth. It will visit. It will leave. It's a conversation your body is having with itself. This place loves that word, because it's kinder than control. Back in the room, the shadows had stretched into bars, thin and reasonable. the kind blinds make when they wait for someone to decide how much night to invite in. I lay down and didn't sleep. Mark stood at the window with his arms folded while his reflection looked over his shoulder. Evening came without asking permission. The hallway sound changed to the hush buildings used to get themselves to dawn. We can go home now. I know. We should. One more hour. For what? For one more hour. He knew the math. One becomes two. He leaned his head against the glass and let the window take the heat from his forehead. The first cry came thin through the wall. High, quick, clipped, not a machine, a baby. My chest knew it before my mind did. I sat up. Mark flinched like someone had snapped a rubber band against his wrist. It's late. I know. They let families stay. I know. That doesn't make it not a choice. A second cry answered the first, lower, rounder, the sound of a small person testing power and liking it. Then a third, not overlapping, not a chorus, a rotation, like birds taking turns. The corridor outside stayed empty when I checked. A cart squeaked once, then remembered to be silent. Mark put his ear to the wood and pulled back, as if he'd leaned onto something hot. He looked at me and didn't say the obvious, because it would break us open. The sound reached into the place under my ribs where the river lived and made a new pattern there, a braid. When quiet returned, it wasn't much of a quiet, more like the air holding an echo in its mouth. I sat and tried to think of weather, and thought of nothing but skin. I want to step outside. 5 minutes. We walked. The hall had lost its staff or hidden them too well for us. The lights had dimmed to a civilized dusk. The side door near the dining room opened on air with a cool mouth. Small pathlights made shallow bowls of safety at our feet. The trees had the tall, indifferent sound of things that know how long they live. We didn't speak. Breath showed, faint, then disappeared. At the bend, the river opened. The moon sat on it like a thin coin. A figure stood on the bank to the right, long and still, head lifted the way you do when listening to a lesson whispered through glass. Mark's fingers found my sleeve. I had already seen. It wasn't a tree. It was Varric. He stood in that careful way hunters stand when animals are deciding what they see. Hands by his sides. Fingers relaxed. His face caught the moon on the angle of a bone. When his eyes turned a fraction, they took the light and returned it wrong. Not the way human eyes dull it and hand it back warm, but like water over metal, a brief, clean flash. The river, obliging, mirrored the flash and threw it up to us. It was like catching a fish gleam the second before it slips. We should go back. Wait. He didn't move. The longer I looked, the less convinced I was that he stood on the bank. The reflection was a degree off, like the river had learned a new math. The air flattened. A moth blundered through the circle of light at our feet and made the night look staged. He knows we're here. He hadn't turned his head, but I felt his attention find us, the way you feel, sun through eyelids. I looked down to steady my knees. My shoes had left tiny crescents in the dust, delicate half-moons that made my stomach turn with recognition. When I raised my head, his chin had lifted a fraction. Not a wave, a notice. We should go. His voice trembled just enough to tell me anger and fear were sharing a chair. I took his hand. My palm was cooler than his, despite the residual heat feathering along my skin from whatever Mira had given me. Varric's head tilted the smallest degree, as if acknowledging a thought he'd had earlier that had just been proven right. The river carried that gesture toward us and tore it to thin shreds on the stones. We turned. The lights along the path led us back like well-trained dogs. At the door, I looked over my shoulder. The outline at the water hardly shifted. The reflection still lagged behind the body like a thought, trying to catch up. The moon slid behind a thin cloud and vanished. In the dark, his shape didn't disappear. It seemed lit from within by a careful, rationed light. Inside, a nurse pushed a cart as if walking more quietly would make her invisible. The squeak came and went. In our room, the carafe had been refilled. The water line sat a half-inch higher. The air was cooler. The smell in the room had shifted a hair toward something cleaner, sharper, like the taste of metal you can't name without sounding crazy. Mark closed the door and stood with his back against it. He tried to arrange his face into truth without scaring me and failed. We leave in the morning. In the morning. Promise. I nodded. The crescent at my thumb pulsed twice like a small thing testing voice. I lay down and covered my stomach with my hands, as if to tell my body I was listening to it now, not to water or eyes that held light wrong. We slept badly. I woke convinced someone had opened the door and stood inside to be polite about it. Each time the room looked untouched. Each time the smell leaned further toward Sharp. The cries rose once, far, then closer, then far again, as if walking a loop I couldn't map. When silence settled, it was the kind that waits. Before dawn, the river inside me grew louder again, threading my ribs with a new insistence. Warmth bloomed and faded under my skin, in slow circles. Not pain, not yet. I pressed my palm flat to my belly and felt the faintest resistance, as if the body beneath the skin had learned a word and wanted to try it out against my hand. In the corner of the ceiling, the joint where two cool planes met darkened, then brightened with the breath of a hidden machine. I closed my eyes, and the image of Varric by water lifted whole. The wrong reflection, the animal flash, the pressed air. The worst part wasn't that I didn't know the rules here. The worst part was how a piece of me had started to like the way those rules felt against my skin. Morning peeled the room back in thin layers. The taste of metal sat on my tongue, faint as a coin. Mark stood at the sink splashing water on his face like a man coming up from a long dive. He looked at me in the mirror. We're leaving. Yes. Today. Yes. A knock, soft but measured. The door opened the width of a finger, and Mira's braid slid into view before the rest of her. Good morning. How are you breathing? Fine. The lab sent numbers. Luteal timing is good. Receptive pattern. If you were at home, I'd call and say, this is a good day to try. Since you're here, I'm saying it in person. Mark's hand tightened on the towel. We plan to leave. You still can. You saw our names and decided our bodies were ready the second we walked in. I don't decide biology. I read its handwriting. Today is legible. What does this mean? I asked. Better odds than yesterday. If you want to try without losing a week, we can. Minimal sedation, drift only. You can stop at any point. Mark moved a half step closer to me without thinking. We said no last night. We said we'd leave. You can still leave. I looked at him. I looked at the bed. The low river sound inside me hadn't gone. It had learned my breathing. If we say yes, what happens first? A short consent, a room, monitors that hum too low. Me, Dr. Varric, 30 minutes of procedure, an hour of rest. You sleep here or you go home. Choice remains yours. Can I talk to him? Of course. She left. The latch clicked with a small, polite promise. Tell me you're sure, Mark said. I'm not. I want to be. I can't get the sound out of my head. That's not a reason. It's the only one I have. His hands dropped to his sides, as if holding anything would make him break. If we do this, we do it with rules. No new papers. We stop if it feels wrong. You don't apologize for stopping, I promise. Varric entered without the knock, moving with the quiet of someone who understands hinges. The gray suit made him look like a fact. You asked for me. Is it really a good day? A good day, not a miracle. I dislike that word. If we change our minds halfway, then we stop. The body isn't an order form, and I'm not a priest. What do you actually do in that room? Mark asked. Ultrasound guidance, local anesthetic, a brief dilation, a transfer, a wash, 10 minutes quiet. Your body does the rest. Yes, I said. Mark closed his eyes. When he opened them, he didn't move away from me. On our terms, always. They brought me through corridors that had learned to fold sound into their walls. The room was dim, not dark, the light the color of lungs. Machines hummed low, the kind of bass you feel in bone. The air smelled like antiseptic, and the first seconds after rain hits a hot road. Staff moved with the focus of actors who forgot the audience. Mira's face steadied in my view. Fingers tucked hair behind my ear. We'll place an IV. Just saline. Drift. A cool thread entered my wrist. Electrodes kissed my skin. The monitor lit with numbers that meant meaning to them and rhythm to me. The bed whispered under the sheet. Mark stood near my head, a fixed point. His hand rested on my shoulder, not pressing me down, tying himself to the world. This room is wrong. I know. You can say stop. I know. Varric stood where I could see him, without turning my head. He didn't loom. He watched the nurse, watched the screen. His voice came low, even. Breathe. Think about the place in your chest that warms when you hold the idea of what you want. Keep your breath moving there. I did. Something in the walls answered back like a sympathetic string. You will feel pressure. Then heat. Seconds only. Tell us if it becomes pain. This is not endurance. A drape hid what I needed hidden. A chemical cool traced my thighs. A pinch. A widening numb that wasn't quite numb. More, a valley sensation fell into. Lights along the ceiling softened a degree. The hum sank lower. A machine settling into work. My inner ear understood it and relaxed. You're doing well. Mira's voice at my temple. On the wall above me, a shadow passed. It didn't match anybody in the room. Too tall. A line too long for a shoulder. It slid again, looping, the way a snake makes a circle when it decides to be its own wall. At the circle's center, a darker center, like a mouth that didn't need lips. Heat pooled low in my belly, warm, then hot. A thread of fire pulled through water and finding a way to live there. Pressure, Varric said, and the word arrived with the sensation as if they'd planned to meet. Not pain, exactly. A deep intrusion, a key moving down into an old lock. Mark's hand tightened. Careful not to hurt. All right. Yes. Metal rose in my mouth. Not taste exactly. Memory of taste. The hum sank another fraction until my spine learned it. I felt my pupils drag wider. The edges of the room softened into halos and thinned again. The looping shadow tightened, drew a line through me, like a thread pulled true. A word formed in the space under my ribs where the river lived. Hungry. It didn't belong to any voice in the room. It didn't belong to me. It arrived fully made, heat and need, becoming shape. Mira's hand adjusted a clip. For an instant, when her wrist turned, a faint blue line lay under the skin, too straight for a vein, like a map drawn with a ruler. I blinked, and it was vein again. Heat eased. A cool wash followed. The relief of a window opened on a hot night. Varric's voice dropped again. Good. Let the warmth settle. Something shifted inside me. Not instrument, not flesh. The sensation of a presence deciding where its furniture went. The coil loosened, made itself smaller, then went still the way an animal sleeps when it trusts the ground. Halfway, Varric murmured. Then, almost to himself, pleased perfect. The hum thinned. Far off, a baby cried. The sound squeezed under the door like a small cat. Another cry answered. The coil shadow flickered, as if the building had exhaled. 10 minutes quiet, Varric said. We don't rush the last part. We were quiet. Machines kept their polite affirmations. Mira's braid pressed into the nape of her neck like a small badge. The monitor clicked a dignity of seconds. I breathed where he told me to breathe. The river slid through my chest without striking anything. When it ended like a good door closing. The drape lowered. The light rose a degree. The hum lifted and went looking for another person. Varric's eyes met mine. He had learned this room's light. It made him less mercurial. Everything went as we wanted. Then, gentler, as well as it could. Mira's hand rested on my forearm, cool and steady. Rest an hour. Then we walk. Then you nap. Then you decide. Mark didn't leave me until they had to adjust the bed. He kissed my temple like he could take heat out with his mouth. He did not offer comfort that would break me. The recovery room had a window and a clock that didn't tick. A nurse I hadn't met checked the line and wrote a number with a pencil, as if graphite whispered better to paper. When I stood, my legs remembered their job. My blood felt a degree heavier, like it had been asked to make room. Back in our room, Mira studied my face, the way you check pupils in dusk. Any pain? No. Any lightheadedness? No. Any metaphors? A door opening inside a house we thought had only one floor. Good. She allowed herself a quick smile and left. In the bathroom mirror, I met myself and paused. My pupils had widened and stayed there. The irises looked pale, thin rings around dark. My skin had lost a shade, not sick, just less owned. At my throat, a delicate net of faint blue traced new or newly noticed paths. I leaned closer. The crescent at my thumb had gone white, but a darker smear curled beside it, like a shadow under glass. Mark stood in the doorway, watching my face, not the mirror. You're pale. I'm fine. Your eyes. It's the light. He tried the switch up and down, hunting for forgiveness. The pupils didn't care. We can go home. Soon. Tonight. We lay on the bed because the room wanted us horizontal. The building's noises settled into their night arrangement. Cries rose in a soft cluster, then stopped like a flock turning behind trees. A cart squeaked and remembered not to. Air sighed through a vent. Sleep came from the side. In it, the room was the room, and our crib was here even though it had never been. Blue sheet with silver dots, wooden stars still. On the dresser, the green dot glowed in a rhythm I didn't know yet. Faster, hungry. Pressure rose under my skin, precise, testing the tent. I lifted the blanket. My belly hadn't changed shape, but it was insistent in a new language. A small hand pressed from inside. 5 points. The middle stronger. Hold, release. My skin remembered the shape and tried to keep it. My palm met it. A whisper left me that I didn't hear. You're here. A reply moved under my hand. Not words. A rub, a claim. Another push near a rib. I followed, laughing and crying in the same unmade breath. You're here. A voice at my ear. Inside. In the river's dialect. Mama. It landed and dissolved into heat that ran down my arms, sweet at the edges, burning at the core. I surfaced halfway. The room was itself. No green dot here. Nightlight bone. Mark slept on his side facing me, mouth a thin line. Pressure didn't stop. It slowed and scraped. A turn. A learning. I touched the place and felt resistance. Not hard. Not soft. A shape that meant to stay. You're here. Mark's eyes opened. He saw my hand. He was up in a single careful motion, pulling the blanket back. Air cooled my stomach. Skin looked like skin. He leaned close. Hold still. I did. He waited through a beat that cost him. Then the shape announced itself again. A small palm pressed from the inside, steady and real, the outline of fingers visible beneath the surface. Not light, not want. The hand flattened, slid, withdrew. Where it had been, faint bruises rose. Pale prints, 5 to a hand. 2 hands, the spacing wrong for anything but what it was. His mouth parted. No sound. He looked at me, at the marks, back at me. We're leaving tonight. I placed my palm over the newest print. Warmth answered from within, a slow, satisfied press. The river inside me changed tempo and found a rhythm that matched a heart that had never beat out here. We're leaving, he repeated, voice rough, as if saying it twice could untie what we'd chosen. He reached for his phone. The screen spilled blue into the room. His thumb slipped. The phone bounced under the chair. He ducked to grab it. In that blink, something cool brushed the side of my throat from the inside. A kiss and a claim. My breath hitched. The bruises darkened a shade, pretty as flowers, if you forgot what they meant. Mark straightened, phone in his hand, his face certain and terrified. We're leaving now. I looked at him. I looked at my stomach. The faint handprints blossomed, then paled, then showed again as if from deeper. My voice came out steady. I didn't know where I had found it. You're here. The room held its breath with us. The building listened. The river in my ribs kept its patient hush. And in the space under my palm, something small answered with a deliberate push, as if it understood that a door had closed behind us and was pleased to be on this side. Morning came in thin bars through the blinds, the kind of light that makes a room feel like it's holding its breath. I lay still and watched dust drift, slow as ash. The handprints were still there across my belly. Pale ovals, small crescents, faint as if pressed by flour-dusted fingers, and then lifted away. I touched one with the tip of a finger. Heat answered from underneath, small and sure, as if a mouth kissed me from the other side. Mark had been pacing long enough to wear a groove I could feel with my bare feet. Back and forth, hand at the back of his neck, back and forth again. He finally stopped, saw I was watching him, and his face tried to set itself into a shape that could hold us both. We're leaving. I pulled the blanket down to my hips. His eyes went to the prints, then back to my face with the kind of care a person uses when walking around glass. We can go now. I'll get the car. We don't need their driver. We don't explain. We just go. He needs me. The words came without a plan, small and stubborn, true in a way that made me furious at my own mouth. Don't do that. Do what? Make it into a person so early. That's their trick. There were handprints. And you know that's not possible. I felt them. I know what you felt. He came closer, careful, palms open. I'm not calling you crazy. I'm saying this place is built to make impossible feel normal. That's the point. It's selling relief. I slid off the bed and the floor tilted for a second, as if we were on water. The tilt passed. A copper taste rose behind my teeth, bright as a coin. He reached a hand out but didn't touch me. You're pale. I'm fine. Sit a minute. If I sat, I would stay. I stood. The air had that filtered chill, like refrigerator air pretending to be a breeze. It made the world obedient. He opened the closet, yanked down our bag, and started stuffing clothes without folding. A man done with ceremony. Socks, charger, a sweater I never wore but refused to leave. He worked silent, jaw jumping, as if the muscle had found a language of its own. We can hit the lobby before they notice. If someone talks, we keep walking. If Varric shows up, we don't listen. It won't be that easy. I'll make it that easy. A soft knock. The door eased open a finger's width. Mira's braid slid through first, then her face, bright as glass washed and set back in a frame. Good morning. May I come in? I nodded because someone had to. She stepped inside, and the room accepted her, the way rooms accept people who belong to them. How are we breathing? Fine. Any pain? No. She set a tray on the table and lifted covers. Bowls of oatmeal like clouds poured on purpose. Apple slices arranged in a clean crescent. A small cup with a foil lid. A white dish lined with pills in a precise row. Breakfast and vitamins, tailored to the child's unique needs. Mark's shoulders rose. You mean her needs? Both, but yes, Elena first. What's in them? Support, iron, B complex, omega, a custom endocrine formula, the boring part of what we do. No more custom anything. He put himself between me and the tray like a barricade could change chemistry. Something low in my chest rattled the way a drawer does when it won't close. I stepped around him. The pills looked like notes waiting for a hand. I'll take them. Elena. I'll take them. Mira watched the space between us the way a weather person watches a sky. She didn't try to move the clouds. She noticed them. Her voice stayed level. Hydrate. The dining room is open when you're ready. Or there's a small lounge facing the trees. It keeps secrets if you ask it to. She left as quietly as she had come. The door kissed the frame. I swallowed the vitamins in 2 swallows. Warmth slid down and opened like a small fire, deciding the room was safe. The copper brightened. I took a bite of apple and sweetness made the metal almost kind. We're not staying. Mark took the bowl and set it down too hard. We eat and go. He's hungry. Stop. I can feel it. You can feel adrenaline and whatever they gave you yesterday and the pressure of me being an ass, not hunger. He closed his eyes and breathed like he was lifting weight. We move before Varric walks in with that voice that sounds like a blanket. A tiny laugh brushed the back of my palate. It felt like a bubble breaking, private. I put my hand over the prints. The skin rose into my palm with a slow roll. Not a kick, a turn in sleep, a yes. Do you feel that? I see you holding yourself because you're scared. It's not that. He scrubbed his face with both hands. If you want the dining room, fine. But then we leave. Okay. The hallway had more bodies and fewer voices, like a dream where mouths move and sound forgets to arrive. The dining room pretended not to be a dining room again. Light, forgiving edges, chairs that invited without insisting. Couples sat 2 by 2 like animals waiting to be named. The women had a careful shine. The men looked like survivors who couldn't find the wreck behind them anymore. We took a table by the window, where trees kept doing honest work. A nurse I didn't know passed with a tray of small covered cups. The scent behind the foil wasn't fruit. She angled the tray so it wouldn't reach me and slid on. At the next table, a woman in a robe and a man in a sweater sat with their knees aligned. Her hair was slicked straight back. The skin under her eyes had thinned, but her smile belonged to a place that hadn't been invented yet. "How far are you?" she asked, as if we were neighbors in a park. "I don't know." "It's okay not to know here." Her partner touched her hand. "The eggs are stubborn, but she isn't." "It's working," she said. "I can feel it. Perfect. Growing stronger every day." He echoed it like a prayer he'd been given to hold. Perfect. Growing stronger every day. Across the room, another woman laughed, small and quick, then covered her mouth like she had broken a rule and looked to see who would forgive her. A nurse did, with her eyes. "You see this," Mark said low. "They're happy. They're synchronized." The woman in the robe leaned toward me, conspirator and saint. "Did you meet Dr. Varick yet this morning?" "Not today. He makes choices feel like air. You forget to notice your breathing until he asks you to." She went back to her oatmeal with a devotion that bordered on worship. The spoon lifted and fell like a metronome somewhere, was keeping time for us all. Over by the desk, a nurse set a plate in front of a man with a long scar at his jaw. He didn't touch it until Varick walked in. When Varick crossed the threshold, the man lifted his fork. Others did too. Subtle, uniform. The hair at my neck rose like grass before a wind. He moved like weather, calm and sure. He didn't need to be loud. He stopped at tables and let his attention land, and people lifted their faces to it, like plants turning to a window. His gaze touched me for a breath, not long, and the warmth in my center pulsed once. Pleased. I hated how my body behaved like a well-trained dog. "Let's go," Mark said. I put the spoon down because I wanted him with me for one more minute and knew eating would give him another fight. We stood. The women nearest us looked up together and smiled with the same softness. Not at me. At what moved under my skin. In the corridor, he stopped so abruptly, I almost ran into him. "Do you trust me?" "Yes." "Then come now. No packing, no explaining. Front doors, keep walking. I need the bathroom." "Elena?" "It'll take a minute." He clenched his jaw. He looked toward the lobby like it was a tide he could time if he stared hard enough. Fast. The bathroom's quiet was shaped on purpose. The mirror was the expensive kind that gives you back a friendlier version of yourself, even when you don't deserve it. The lights hummed a thin insect tone. I ran the tap just to add another sound to the room. I lifted my shirt. The bruises had faded to a question, but the skin had changed in a way I couldn't name. Not more, not less. New. A sheen like water under thin ice. Sideways, there was a rounding you wouldn't see if you weren't looking for it, and would never stop seeing once you did. I pressed my palm there, and warmth rose like a hand, meeting a hand through glass. A laugh bloomed inside my skull and moved through bone instead of air. It was small. It was unbearably kind. "Hello?" I whispered. A knock. Not Mira's polite rhythm. Quick, kneading. Mark's voice low at the seam. "Elena, we have to move. 1 second." The laugh dissolved into a hum, and the river sound that had been with me since the first night slid back into its place. I turned off the tap and watched water braid over my wrists, like it was learning a new route. I dried my hands and opened the door. He stood close. The brightness in his eyes had the look of a man holding a door against a wind he can't see. "You're smiling." "Am I?" "Don't." I wiped my mouth with the back of my hand, like I could erase what he saw. "Okay, let's go." The building paid attention in a way that felt like respect and surveillance at the same time. The floor gave the right sound back to our steps. The vents breathed on schedule. The artless walls watched without blinking. A nurse with gray hair tucked behind one ear passed with a nod that held exactly the amount of knowledge a nod should hold when acknowledging people who think they're invisible. At the turn to the lobby, a young couple stood with their hands in each other's back pockets, an intimacy that would have annoyed me anywhere else. Here, it looked like choreography. The woman lifted her shirt to show a line of pale bruises that matched mine. The man kissed the newness of her skin. Their eyes met mine, and they smiled in that waiting room way you learn when pain teaches you to be gentle with strangers. "Perfect," the woman murmured, growing stronger every day. Mark's fingers closed around my wrist, not to hurt, to anchor. If someone talks to us, we keep moving. "I know." "Don't look at him." "I know." He meant Varric. He stood by the desk with his hands loosely clasped, showing the woman with the scarf where to sign on a small screen. He didn't look up. The receptionist didn't either. A nurse stepped around the counter with a tray and angled herself so that if we kept straight, we would have to brush by. She didn't block us. She made forward rude. "Elena." "I know." The white in the paint felt turned up a notch. I heard a small laugh again, a rehearsal cough from behind a curtain, and swallowed it into heat. Mark steered us on a soft arc away from the desk, toward the corridor that led to the side exit, the one that had led us into trees last night. The photographs of trees along the wall pretended to be windows. The floor polished our reflections into doubles, who looked better rested than we were. Halfway down, my stomach tightened and released. Not a cramp, a grip, a small massage from inside, practicing language. I put my hand there, and a nudge answered my palm, like a cat pressing its head to a hand. My mouth moved without permission. I forced it calm. "Keep walking." "I am." "Don't let them see you do that." We passed a pushcart parked without its squeak. A man on a phone spoke in a language I didn't know. Voice soft. A word that sounded like the beginning of a promise. The door at the end showed a clean bar of outside day. Mark reached for the handle and pressed. It didn't move. He pressed again, keeping the effort out of his face. The bar withheld. He glanced at the small black square in the wall beside the frame, neat as a mole you'd ignore. His breath stayed even because he told it to. Other door. 8 paces. He tried the second bar. It held. Tendons stood in his wrist. He didn't yank. He didn't want the sound. Front. We pivoted casual, people who have changed their minds about nothing. The lobby waited with its contained weather. The river sound inside me had gotten louder until it erased the soft music entirely. Mark leaned close. "You're shaking." "I know." "Don't look at him." "I'm not." Varric didn't turn. The receptionist smiled into a phone. A different nurse flowed from behind the desk and arranged herself with a tray exactly where continuing straight would be clumsy. The light seemed brighter without lamps changing. I heard my own voice before I meant to use it. "Bathroom." Mark's hand tightened. "No." "Then the trees. I need air." "We have air." "The trees feel like air." He measured the room with one breath. 1 minute. Then we try again. We made the same gentle arc toward the side corridor. The framed trees played at being exits. The door at the end surrendered with a clean hiss. Air met us with pine and a little damp. Not strong. True. The path bent toward the river and toward the car lot we hadn't seen in daylight yet. The small ground lights were off because day wasn't pretending. I touched my belly. The answer was immediate and shy, a nudge under the heel of my hand. The laugh came again, muffled like giggling under blankets, private as a secret kept between two bodies that used to be one. "It's okay," I whispered, and heard how much I meant it. "I hear you." A breeze moved the tops of the trees. Shadow ran across our shoes and kept going. I looked back through the glass. The lobby was a terrarium, warmth contained. No sign of Varric from this angle. A nurse's shoulder. The seal on the door laid down, sound like a promise. "We have to go now," Mark said. "I know. Not the river. The car." "Okay." I followed. The warmth lodged under my hand like a lit coin, bright and private, a currency I didn't know how to spend yet. In the bathroom mirror a few minutes from now, I would lift my shirt and see the faint swell that hadn't belonged to me yesterday. I would press my palm to it, and the laugh would lift again, soft as breath into hair. For now, walking toward the cars, I was a person outside with a hand over her stomach and a man beside her who had learned to keep his voice even in buildings that thought for you. The car lot was a square of white gravel and orderly shadows. A low gate split it from the path. No sign, just a line that told you where permission ended. A driver in a neat jacket stood by the nearest black sedan, with both hands behind his back, like a doorman who had taken vows. Mark lifted a hand. The driver smiled the way people smile at churches. "We're checking out." "Of course, I can help you arrange that at the desk." "We don't need the desk. For keys and gates, the desk is best." The smile didn't change. The gate didn't either. I felt the laugh rise at the base of my skull, like a small bird trying wings, and pressed my palm to my stomach until it settled. Mark stared past the driver at the fence line, measuring points of failure. He turned back to me, jaw tight. "We grab the bag, then we try the front." "Okay." We walked back through the door we'd come out of. The seal whispered as it closed behind us. The corridor looked the same and slightly different, like a room in a dream when you realize the furniture has moved half an inch. In our room, the air held a cooler edge, the way rooms do when someone has been there while you were gone and tried not to disturb anything. The carafe line sat higher. The blanket we hadn't folded was now folded. Mark didn't sit. 10 minutes, then we go. 10 minutes. He looked at the door, then at me. "Lock it when I leave. I want to check something." "What?" "Roots, staff patterns, backstairs." "Mark." "I'll be quick." He was out before I could give my fear a mouth. The latch settled softly, like a pulse, smoothing under a finger. I slid the chain. I checked it twice. The mattress was too good at receiving weight, so when I lay down, it held me like a plan. The river sound moved through my ribs with patient work. I let my eyes close for what I promised would be 1 minute. I was in a chair, and the chair moved, back and forth, a rhythm old as breath. The room was ours, and not ours. The crib from home stood by the window, with the blue sheet and silver dots. The mobile's wooden stars didn't turn. A weight lay along my forearm. Heavy, then not heavy, then heavy again, flickering like a bad signal. I looked down. A baby lay there. His face was the most beautiful thing I had ever held, and in the blink after that, it changed. The mouth widened, lips soft to tooth too many, small and neat and white as seeds. The eyes brightened to a wet metal shine, and then softened back to sleepy human blue. The weight changed on my arm with each switch. My bones learned both versions. "Hungry," I whispered, and the mouth opened and made a sound that was laugh and cry together. I rocked and hummed something my mother used to hum when I had been small and feverish. The sound was wrong. It curved in the middle like a blade. The baby's hand uncurled. It had nails. Of course it did. Nails tiny as commas. Or maybe longer, a shade past the place you clip. Sharp like new moons. The fist turned against my chest. The nails scratched a line just under my collarbone, a tick of bright pain, and then nothing. I kissed the crown of his head. It smelled like milk and a hot metal spoon. The chair kept moving. The room around us blurred. When I blinked, the baby was a bundle again, human, ordinary, fragile, the mouth working at nothing. I touched a knuckle to the lip. The lip took the knuckle and tried to draw it in, with a seriousness that broke me. Something hammered on the other side of the dream. Footsteps. The chair slowed. The baby's face shifted one more time, teeth gleaming a second too long. The bundle grew light in my arms and then slipped, like a fish freeing itself. I woke with my hand jammed under my shirt, pressing hard against my sternum. The spot stung. I pulled my hand out and stared. Dry blood crescents ringed my nails. Thin lines ran across my chest, like I'd brushed up against brambles. I sat up too fast, and the room tilted and settled. The lock turned. I wiped my fingers on the sheet, and then tucked both hands under my thighs, like a child caught with candy. Mark came in and shut the door with his shoulder. His face had the gray look of someone who has been in a place the air didn't like. "Lock it." I slid the chain back into place. "What did you do?" "Walked." "Where?" "Basement level, service hall. There's a hallway that curves when it doesn't have to. Doors with no handles on our side. I followed a nurse with a cart. She didn't hear me." He looked at my hands and then at my mouth, like he was trying to read the mess on my face. "They roll things down there. Covered. Glass. Dark. Dark. Thick. Like they're moving night from one room to another." He swallowed. His throat worked. I got closer when she stopped at a pinch point. The cover on one jar wasn't snug. It bumped the lip of the cart. What was in it? Liquid. Not red. Not exactly. Black with a color under it. And something moved. Moved. Like a fish mouth opening, or a heart that hadn't realized it didn't belong to a body anymore. The bed frame made a sound when my legs tightened. The room seemed to take a breath with us. "You're sure?" "I'm sure." He rubbed his palms against his jeans as if to erase a feel he couldn't stand. I heard Varric. "Where?" "Office at the Bend." The door was cracked. He was on the phone, not English at first. He switched when someone walked by. Mark's voice went flat as paper. He said viability twice, then harvest. Quiet. Like he didn't want to offend the word. Harvest. He nodded without looking at me. "You don't harvest babies. You harvest crops. You harvest parts. You're guessing." I know what I heard. He walked to the sink and let the water run, as if he could wash the sound off. He shut it and leaned on the counter with both hands. "We leave." I just slept. Elena. And I dreamed. Of course you did. He was beautiful. Stop. He was. He turned. The control in his voice wore thin. Whatever is happening in there is not ours. He's ours. No. I can feel him. That's why they win. You think they're winning. You think they aren't. We stared at each other long enough for the edges of our faces to blur. His hands shook once, a tremor he couldn't hide. I pulled my knees up on the bed and wrapped my arms around them like I could keep the shape of myself from shifting under someone else's hands. Let me see your hands. No. Elena. I uncurled my fingers slowly and showed him. The half-moons of brown at my nails caught the light. The thin lines on my chest showed when I shifted. He came closer and stopped himself just short of touching the scratches. Did you do that? I must have. In your sleep. I was rocking him. He closed his eyes like the words had cut something inside his head. He opened them and looked out at a place that wasn't our room. We leave. A knock, the polite rhythm again, Mira's voice through the seam of the door. Can I come in? Mark's face set. I stood. My body moved without asking me first, and the movement felt like a yes. Come in. She stepped in with a tray. Tea this time. The steam smelled like nothing, or like something so clean it didn't register as smell. She set the cups on the table and took in the picture without moving her eyes. Mark at the sink, me on the bed, the air thick with the invisible. How are we? We're leaving after lunch. She looked at Mark, then at me, then back at Mark. The corner of her mouth tilted as if a thought had wanted to be spoken, and she had folded it back into her coat instead. Of course. We'll need our records. You can have them in an hour, or we can send them to your doctor. We'll take them. She nodded, as if that answer had always been one of two. She turned to me. Any dizziness? No. Any cramping? Not pain. Warmth? Yes. She watched my pupils. She watched the skin at my throat. Sleep. A little. Dreams. I didn't answer. The scratches must have read themselves to her because she let the question go by without touching it. I'll bring lunch to your room, if you prefer. We'll go to the dining room, Mark said. He wanted to walk where people could see him. He wanted to make a human shape in public. She left with the quiet she lived in. The tea cooled. I didn't pick it up. We sat still long enough to worry the air thin. When he finally stood, he held out his hand. I didn't take it. He dropped it and pretended he hadn't offered. The dining room was fuller now, heavy with the hush before a storm or an announcement. Couples sat in small squares of space like pieces on a board, waiting for a move. No clink of silverware, no scrape of chair legs. Just the low fabric of the building's hum and the small breath of a refrigeration unit doing its work somewhere no one was supposed to notice. We took a table near the window again. The trees stood exactly where they had this morning. The river made its sound on the far side of the glass. A nurse set a plate down and didn't smile. She looked past us as if her eyes were reserved for things that needed tending more than we did. Across from us, the man with the scar at his jaw rested his hands on either side of his plate and stared at a piece of bread as if it might tell him a secret if he was patient. The woman beside him had the rope of a robe belt looped twice around her waist and tied with a sailor's knot. Her eyes were bright and damp and too still. I don't like this, Mark whispered. We're in a room with people. That's the point. They'll use that if we try to run. Before I could answer, the air changed. It wasn't louder. It was arranged differently, like someone had taken the same notes and played them in a key the room liked better. Varric stepped into the doorway at the far end, and paused, not in a way that asked for applause, more in the way of tides arriving. No one turned their heads. They didn't need to. The difference moved through them. Forks lifted, bread tore, cups found mouths. Conversation that had not existed flickered like candlelight, and then settled into murmurs. It was as if the room had been waiting for permission to behave like a room again. Varric moved between tables. He placed his palm lightly on the back of chairs and bent half an inch to listen. He didn't correct anyone. He didn't instruct. He let people say small things they needed to say in the presence of the person who could make them into decisions. When he reached our row, he did not stop. He met my eyes in a slice of time that felt longer than it was. I felt the warmth under my hand respond before I had moved my hand there. A small nudge, a pressure that meant I was known. Mark's jaw ticked. He tore a piece of bread and didn't eat it. He was full of a hunger that had nothing to do with food. The woman with the robe belt leaned toward me with the careful courtesy of someone wanting not to intrude. "How are you feeling?" "Warm." "That's good." Her smile widened and then controlled itself. "Perfect. Growing stronger every day." The phrase lifted and moved across tables like a call and response in a church I didn't know the hymns to. I watched mouths form the words. I watched hands rest gently on bellies. I watched a man touch his partner's hair as if it were water and he needed his fingers clean. Mark set the bread down. His eyes went to the door like a compass that only had one direction. We go to the room, then the desk. Okay. We stood in a wave of people sitting still. Varric was at the far corner speaking with a couple I hadn't seen before, their fingers interlaced on the tabletop like someone had told them that was how to keep your heart in your body. He didn't look at us. He didn't have to. The staff did. Not hard, not threatening. Just aware of where we put our feet. In the room, the air had leaned more toward that clean, metallic sharp. It wasn't unpleasant. It knew what it wanted. Mark shut the door and pressed his ear to the wood. He pulled back as if he'd touched a burner. Scratching. Where? In the wall. I went still. He moved along the seam where drywall met trim, the way you do when you're hunting a sound. He stopped at the corner by the window and pressed his ear again. Here. I stepped close. The wall was a cool body. I put my ear against it and held my breath. At first there was only building noise, the low rush of air doing its job. Then the faintest drag, like small nails learning plaster. A pause. A second drag from higher up, answer to the first. Then a sound I knew. Thin and high and soft, the start of a cry swallowed quickly, like someone had pressed a cheek to a mouth and shushed. There's a nursery. No. Or a speaker. No. This isn't a speaker. The sound braided. Another voice joined, then another, smaller. Laughs now, not fully formed, breathy, like hiccups with a plan. The hair on my arms rose. My body listened faster than my mind. They're in the walls. He stared at the baseboard like it had grown a mouth. He stepped back and rubbed his palms on his jeans again. He paced twice in a line that wasn't long enough and stopped in front of me. We leave tonight. We told Mira lunch. We asked for records. Records can follow us. Mark, I'm not sleeping here. I might. He pressed his lips together. He looked at my stomach as if it were a border crossing, and he had lost his passport. He lifted his hand and almost touched me and didn't. I can feel him, I whispered. I know. I won't let them take him. They already have. I lay down because standing had become a job I couldn't hold. The river sound in my chest aligned with the building's hum until I couldn't tell which was mine and which belonged to the wall. Mark turned off the lamp and turned it back on, and then left it on dim, as if the light could decide something for us. He sat in the chair by the window and put his ear to the wall again. The scratching had moved. It traveled along the seam like a parade going by, a very small parade, the kind with paper hats. Voices came and went like breath. Some cries rose and clipped off. Some giggles fizzed and vanished. A whimper threaded through it like a string. "They're practicing," I murmured, not fully awake. The dream chair still under me, the bundle in my arms flickering between beautiful and sharp. For what? For me. He looked at me across the dim, and I saw how tired he was of being the person who heard the wrong thing and had to hold it alone. He sat with his head tipped against the wall and his eyes closed, listening to a house that wanted to be more than a house. I slipped under again. The chair rocked on its own. The weight lay along my arm. The breath under my palm warmed into the exact shape of a yes. The walls whispered like trees. The room listened like a church. Somewhere in the building, a door closed with a seal that had nothing to do with weather. The laugh rose one more time at the base of my skull and stayed there, a small animal curling down to sleep as if it had always belonged. By late afternoon, the light went flat and polite, the kind of light that lets a place choose what it wants to be. The scratching in the wall thinned toward the corner and faded like a parade, turning down another street. Mark stood from the chair, as if standing from a grave he hadn't dug. "We go now." He pulled the bag from the closet and began to fill it. Shoes, charger, my sweater, the notepad with our brave questions from days that already felt old. He lined the vitamin packets in a neat row on the counter, as if he needed to see them, not in the bag. Keys, wallet, phone. Phone, wallet, keys. I tied my laces. When I leaned forward, my belly rose. Not much, but enough to make my fingers go careful. The skin felt new, like a healed place you keep touching to be sure it's true. A small nudge answered my palm. "He's awake." "Keep your hand down. Keep your head down." We opened the door. The hall wore its neutral face. A nurse at the far end adjusted a cart with her back to us. Her posture said she knew who had stepped out of which room and preferred to let us think we were surprising her. At the corner, the carpet seam made a small ridge. I stepped over it like a line in a church. The lobby looked not crowded and somehow full, like water holding a dome under surface tension. The receptionist arranged folders with a rhythm that wanted to be music. The driver from last night stood near the door, hands folded behind him, a courteous statue. "Straight to the door," Mark breathed. "Straight. Don't look around." I looked anyway. The woman in the robe sat with her partner on a low couch, foreheads touching. She lifted her fingers in a small wave and lowered them, as if waves were rationed. A man with a fresh bandage in the crook of his elbow stared at the huge lobby plant, as if it knew the next page of his life. We passed the desk. The receptionist's smile lifted like a motion sensor light. Checking out. Just stepping out. For air, the front is open. For car access, security will assist. We'll manage. A nurse adjusted her route by half a step to clear our lane. The driver at the door altered his stance without blocking. Everything adjusted by the smallest measure until it didn't look like adjustment at all. Just choreography we had volunteered for. "Bar," Mark whispered. He pushed. The handle yielded. Day came in, cooler, greener. We stepped onto the white stone apron. Air took my lungs in a clean hand. Keep walking. The path led past tidy shrubs toward the drive. The driver followed at a respectful 3-pace distance. Farther off, the river said its piece, even, indifferent. Don't run, Mark murmured. Running looks like fear. I know. Fear gets help. We were halfway to the car when the hunger hit. Not my stomach. Lower, larger, older, as if a hand had scooped a hollow I hadn't known was there. I bent before I knew I was bending, as if a hook had lifted the front of me from inside. Elena. Wait. The word thinned as I said it. He's... My mouth filled with iron. Not pennies. Nails. The nudge I expected wasn't there. The absence roared. I straightened too fast. The path slid sideways. We're stopping, Mark said to the air that might be listening. The driver stepped 1 pace closer, not touching. Is everything all right? We're fine. Give us a minute. The hunger gnawed harder, a tide choosing a shore. Panic climbed my ribs. I pressed both palms to the small swell, as if hands could build a shelf. Inside, Mark said, softer, the tone a man learns for skittish animals. We can regroup inside. We're leaving. We're leaving smarter. We went back through the door we had just come out of. The lobby swallowed us neatly. Temperature, light, scent returned to their marks as if a stage manager had whispered now. Desk, records, keys, then gone. The receptionist produced a slim folder with my name in an unexcited font. Seeing it in their typeface tightened something under my sternum. We'll sign nothing else. Of course. A clipboard slid forward with a blank line. A nurse flowed from behind the counter and arranged herself in a space that didn't obstruct and yet offered a choice. We're on our way out. Of course. The 2 words had begun to sound like steps in a staircase. We turned. His hand rested lightly at my back. The voice arrived behind us before the person did. Not loud, simply where other sounds decided to look. You're going back to the city. No question. We didn't turn. 3 soft steps sounded like 1. It isn't safe to leave mid-protocol, the nurse said gently, as if reading a label aloud. We're not mid-anything. You're precisely mid. We turned because not turning felt like backing out of a room without seeing the furniture. Varric stood where the lobby's light liked to gather. Suit precise. Hands easy. His eyes borrowed brightness. Brief and managed. We're done. Thank you for your attention. I don't require thanks. His attention eased to me because the room itself tipped toward me. I require care. Leaving now will starve the child of what it needs. The hunger answered him. It bit. A clean old bite. I exhaled like a string had tightened under my ribs. You can say no, Mark told me. But it wasn't about no. It was about an appetite. What does he need? For now, stillness, salt, rest, the river. The river, I repeated, stupid with wanting. Why the river? It's what he's been listening to. His smile recognized a tune. You felt it. We're leaving. We are not a prison. You asked for our work. Work has rules. He has rules. Don't call it he. You can call him a he later, if it comforts you. For now, he is a hunger you asked to carry. Don't walk him into a place that won't feed him. You're packaging a trap as mercy. I'm describing an appetite. Another bite. I bent without intending to. The folder slid from Mark's hand, and fan opened on the floor. Room, Mark said to no one and to everyone. We need a room. Here, the nurse answered, and a panel that had been a wall opened on a small sitting space with a wide window. The river lay beyond, not metaphor now, just water moving like a machine in love. We crossed into the little room. I didn't sit. Sitting meant trying to stand. I braced against the ledge while a wave pushed from inside, not pain, a deep pressure like palms testing a door. Heat crawled across my skin in quick electric insects, and then smoothed away. Breathe, Varric said just behind my shoulder, near enough to touch, far enough not to. He pulls, you breathe. He pushes, you breathe. Don't fight the conversation. Don't call it that. It is that. Her body answering his questions. The pressure fluttered, then flattened, then pushed again, a sequence trying to remember itself. I laughed on an exhale and wanted to bite my own tongue. What? It tickles. Mark made a sound like leather tearing. We leave when you can stand. We'll walk in a moment, Varric said, pleasant as weather shifting. Outside, the path by the water will help. Then a little salt. Then rest. I don't want salt. You do. A nurse appeared with a small packet. She tore it and poured a pinch into her palm. No, it's just salt. The smell hit like a memory of the sea. I touched a finger to it and set it on my tongue. Relief came wrong and fast, a scrape down an itch I didn't know until it left me. The flutter smoothed. The push receded. My knees understood their job. You see? Mark turned on him. What are you making out of her? Exactly what she came for. I came for a child. And you are carrying one. Varric lowered his voice so only we could hear. We don't take, we keep. You think us thieves because we don't use your fear's grammar. Stop making it pretty. I'm making it clear. The building altered by a hair. Somewhere a door sealed with that sound I had begun to hate. The river, through glass, belonged to a sequence my body had decided to keep. Walk, he said softly, and made a path without shoving. We stepped onto the path. The river's noise lifted the ceiling off my chest. Trees held their dark like promises. A nurse followed 3 paces behind and 2 to the side, shadow with manners. Varric walked to my other side at a distance he'd measured once. Slow, he murmured. Listen. The hunger softened into a steady hum. The laugh returned at the base of my skull, a small wild thing pleased with itself. The path curved toward the low bend, where last night he had stood too still to be a man and not still enough to be a tree. Mark kept half a step ahead, scanning. Every time I slowed, he matched me. Every time I touched my belly, he flinched and didn't tell me to stop. We go back in, he said under his breath. We get keys. We drive through the gate if we have to. Okay. You say okay, like someone listening to a different person. I'm listening. To him. To me. The river, Varric said softly, not interrupting, adding, he likes patterns. We reached the bend. Water took our words and made them low and harmless. Wind lifted my hair back and cooled my forehead the way a hand soothes a fever. I closed my eyes. The world tilted, steadied, tilted again. Hold her, the nurse said, but Mark was already at my elbows. I'm fine. You're not. I am. The next wave erased denial. Not a wave, a rearrangement, muscles working in a new sequence, nothing I had read in a book. I opened my mouth, and the river swallowed the sound. My belly tightened under my hands, and then thrust outward, not huge, but sharp, carrying the shape of something with palms that knew how to press. 5 small bulbs rose under the skin and slid. I cupped the place as if to keep it from falling out of me into air. Elena. It's okay. It wasn't okay. It was extraordinary, in the old sense, outside the order of any ordinary I knew. Another press, not fingers this time, a heel, a knee, the tent wall of my skin-breathing weather. Inside, the nurse urged. No. The air belonged to him. The water spoke his tongue. The pressure shifted like a body testing a doorway. Varric crouched, not touching, his face emptied of everything but attention. He is ready sooner than we thought. Don't look pleased. I'm steady, he answered. She is safe. He is impatient. Stop calling it he. He is hungry, and the body offers a path. This is not delivery. This is practice. I won't let you take him. I am not taking anything. The push turned to a scrape, nails against satin, wrong image, right pain. I grabbed Mark's wrist. My nails dug. He didn't pull away. He leaned into me as if I could break him, and he'd thank me. Inside, the nurse said again, urgency under courtesy. The river helps, Varric countered, and I hated him for being right. Another swell, larger, pulling inward like a tide, and then out with a new edge. Heat washed and left cool behind it. The laugh in my skull turned to a word I couldn't catch, then back to laughter because laughter was easier. Mark's face came close. Look at me. I am. Not at him. I'm not. Not at you. I'm here. He kissed my forehead like kissing a burn, gentle and desperate. The skin under my dress rippled in a way no stage of pregnancy owns. A handprint blossomed, darker now, 5 clear bulbs under skin, a palm-shaped flower. Beside it another, out of time, as if 2 sequences argued. No. It came out as air. No. 1. It's 1, Varric said. Bodies are messy when they learn. The hungry bite returned hard enough to unmake me. I folded and he held me. The river hurled noise over my mouth so I wouldn't hear myself. Through a small window in attention, I saw our reflection. 2 bodies and a third shape made of light and shadow between them. And remembered animals we had been, and never stopped being. I can't. You can, Mark said. Then we go. The pressure didn't drop. It changed, a pull to the spine, then a push that brought an image under my eyes, a face turned toward mine, close enough to fog glass. The skin on my belly lifted as if a face pressed to a window. Something round and smooth bulged. Then the suggestion of features impossibly delicate. A brow, a hint of nose, the soft slope of a mouth. Mark froze. The nurse made a small sound that had no word in it. Varric's eyes widened a fraction, and then obeyed themselves. No. I couldn't look away. The mouth under my skin moved. Not a fish gape, human rehearsal. The lips formed a shape like the beginning of a vowel. The pressure of it met the palm of my hand. It tickled and burned and asked. I pressed back without meaning to. The lips shaped again, trying to mirror mine through the thin wall between us. Inside, the nurse said, voice too high now, the professional tone cracking. Not yet. Now, Mark rasped, panic breaking the top off his voice. We're going now. The face pressed once more, sharper, the mouth opening in a sound I couldn't hear. The world inhaled and held it. The river ran. The trees didn't move. The door behind us stayed open, like a mouth that hadn't learned to shout. I leaned into Mark and felt the bones under his skin, as if I might need to borrow them. I looked down. The outline held. The lips opened and closed again, as if the smallest breath in the world had learned speech and wanted to say a single word before all the rules changed. The face pressed again from inside me, smooth and round beneath my skin, the hint of a brow, the soft slope of a mouth. My belly lifted like a tent wall against a patient hand. The lips shaped a vowel I couldn't hear, and the world held its breath with me. River noise filled my skull until it drowned the small sound I was making. Mark's arms locked around my waist. We became a hinge. He tried to turn me toward the door. "We go." My throat wouldn't answer. The mouth under my skin opened and closed, like a fish taught a human word. Heat pulsed beneath my palm. The air thinned. "Please." I wasn't sure if I said it, or if it arrived from inside. Path lights flickered, even though it was day. The building exhaled through a vent and found a deeper hum, like a machine clearing its throat. Somewhere inside, metal rolled against metal. Doors sighed. The trees held perfectly still, like painted trees that had never known wind. 3 staff appeared the way people appear in dreams, already in place. 2 women in white with neat hair, a man in a soft jacket that didn't wrinkle. They didn't rush. They entered our gravity with polite faces and steady hands. "Let us help you back inside." "We're outside," Mark said. "We're leaving." "It isn't safe here." "We're leaving." My knees softened. The hand slipped away, leaving a hot field under my skin. A laugh rose at the base of my skull and dissolved. I tried to stand taller. The world tilted 1 degree and kept it. "I can walk." "Of course." They opened space without blocking us. Their eyes watched my mouth for the next word, reading weather with faces. "Mark, I have you." The door took us. The lobby gathered us like warm breath. Light made a smooth skin over everything and hid the seams. Couples sat like arranged furniture, each turned toward a center only they could see. The woman in the robe looked up. Her partner covered her belly with both hands, fingers laced like a lid. A murmur moved mouth to mouth, low and steady, a prayer they'd been given. Perfect, growing stronger every day. The receptionist's smile shifted at the edges. A line of folders sat aligned like small altars. "We have a room ready." "We don't need a room," Mark said. "It will help with the waves. There's a car outside. Security will bring it forward." We didn't ask. "The driver is already here." The driver stood by the door, hands folded behind him, a solution lifted down from a shelf. A heel pushed from inside me, sharp, clean, bright. I shut my eyes and saw a dark hall lined with jars, shapes half-made inside, tiny mouths like pale coins, floating open. A cool light wandered along the glass. The vision blinked away, leaving the taste of rain on hot pavement, and a sweetness turned wrong. "Stay," breathed a soft voice where thoughts live. The word didn't scare me the way it should have. It felt like tapping the side of a crib. It felt like yes. "We'll go to the room," the man in the jacket said. "We are," Mark started. "We'll go," I said. Mark's eyes measured me like a forecaster reading a sky he didn't trust. "This is wrong." "I know." "Then don't." "I need the floor. I can't stand like this." The corridor widened without widening. Doors remembered to be doors. The thin music of the building changed key and sharpened half a step. Couples stood as we passed. Someone squeezed someone's fingers. The words braided again. "Perfect, growing stronger every day." "Stop," Mark said to them, as if their voices were a radio. They smiled like people in paintings. Mira met us at a door that pretended it had been waiting for her. Her braid was neat, her eyes awake. "There's a spot ready, light and quiet. We'll make you comfortable, Elena." "We are not doing a delivery," Mark said. "This is not delivery. This is a moment." The room swallowed me with a cool mouth. The window framed the river like it was proud of the view. A bed waited with good posture. A second bed folded against the wall, polite and unnecessary. Machines hummed beneath their own breath. Lie down. I did. The mattress received my hips like a careful partner. The air smelled clean, but under the clean was iron, and under the iron was something that remembered blood and refused the word. Mark stood at the foot of the bed, too straight, one hand hovering, unsure where it belonged. 5 minutes, he said, then we go. Mira checked a monitor with 2 fingers, listening to its noise like a chest. Numbers climbed and fell and nested. She placed a cool hand around my wrist, a measuring circle. Her other hand smoothed the sheet where my dress bunched. She didn't ask a question out loud. Warmth. Good. That's not an answer, Mark said. 'Tis one of them. Lights dimmed by a hair. Corners moved away. I tried to breathe in long loops and discovered the loop was already happening. The movement below my palms circled like a coin under fabric, searching for the place with the best view. Elena, said the not voice, not sound, pressure shaped like a thought. I see you. Mira tilted her head. Talking helps, she said, even if it feels like talking to yourself. She took out a soft band from a cabinet. The color was the color of good intentions. No straps, Mark said. They're not for restraint. They look like restraint. They remind the body where it is. No. His voice went lower. His hands became fists on purpose. At the door, the driver adjusted his posture by a degree. Outside, 2 nurses traded their weight from one foot to the other at the same time. I'm not going anywhere, I said. Mira looked at me, at him, at the space between us. If we keep her from falling, we give her more control. Fine. The band crossed my hips, low and easy. Another across my ribs, not tight. A small one around my wrist, as if an IV might be needed and wasn't yet. They felt like hands that knew where to stop. I'm thirsty. Salt. No. Water. She brought both. The salt smelled like a past life at the shore. I touched a finger to it and let it sit on my tongue. Relief licked the back of my throat, wrong and fast. The hunger inside changed note. I set the water down before my hand rattled. We will take her to the delivery suite, the man in the jacket said to the air. We're not, Mark said. We will if we need to. We won't if we don't. Another push lifted my hips against the strap. A laugh tried to rise and I pressed it down with my teeth. I want to sit. We'll help you. The bed raised its back and met me halfway. The monitor's blue heartbeat drew its calm staircase. The warm place knocked under my hand, delighted with itself. Footsteps whispered outside, people's feet, private words, a hallway breathing before a curtain rises. Someone sobbed once and swallowed it. The room across the hall exhaled like a machine settling into work. We can't stay here, Mark said. We can't. The atmosphere moved like weather, not the air, the idea of air. Lights flirted without and chose not to. The vent found a lower note and purred. Far off, a door groaned, a throat opening after silence. Couples found their choir. Perfect, growing stronger every day. Stop, Mark snapped. Stop it. The sound cut water, then disappeared. 2 nurses rolled in with a gurney quiet as a moth. A man with a clipboard watched the floor. The driver moved to the foot of the bed and made the air behave. We're moving you downstairs. No. Safer, better light, closer team. I clasped both hands over my belly and the body under my skin pushed my palms away, like it wanted air more than the idea of modesty. Heat kissed the strap at my hip. "We'll move on your breath," Mira said. "In, out, move, stop. Your rhythm, not ours." "What if I say no?" Mark asked. Then we wait for a worse moment. He swore softly. He put his hand on the band across my ribs and stole a loop of my breath. His fingers shook. The first wheel squeaked, then learned not to. The room slid out from under me and then returned as the gurney accepted my weight. Soft clicks, small commitments. The sheet whispered. The ceiling lights smudged by overhead. The world tilted and rolled. The corridor stretched like someone had pulled it in the night. Couples stood at their doorways like candle flames that had been burning too long. Hands on bellies, hands on throats, hands on the backs of hands. The whispering made a fabric in the air. Perfect, growing stronger every day. "Don't touch me," I said, though no one had. "We're here," Mira answered. Halfway to the elevator, my mind slid sideways. The wall opened like a mouth. Glass shelves stared back. Jars held morning-colored fluid. Limbs not finished floated like weeds. A small face turned to the glass and pressed. For a flicker, it looked like any infant. Then the angle shifted. The eyes were wrong. The mouth counted too high. "Don't look," Mark said. "I can't not. Look at me." I looked. He was an anchor tied to a boat in wind. He walked with one hand on the rail, the other grazing my shoulder like a compass trying to remember north. The elevator opened like a mouth that had learned table manners. The polished wall reflected us as a family someone else had staged. 2 nurses, the driver, Mira, Mark, me. For 1 second, the reflection showed a woman with my face, and not my life. Older by a night we hadn't finished. Pupils wide, mouth a door left open. The car dropped. The hum sank. Under the hum, another sound collected. "Do you hear that?" Mark whispered. "I do." "What is it?" It climbed through concrete like water, choosing to go the wrong way. Not one voice, many. A cradle chorus, cooing that wasn't sweet, laughing that hadn't learned laughter yet. It gathered beneath us and traveled with us. "Babies," Mark breathed. His hands slipped, found the rail again. "Practice," I murmured. The word left on its own. It sounded like a prophecy too small to be useful. The doors opened on a corridor painted the color of apology. The lights were milk and tooth and sea. The air was clean, with a memory of what had been cleaned away. At the far end, a frosted door glowed. Behind it, shadows moved in a shape I recognized now. Not machines, not people exactly, but arrangements. "No," Mark said to everything. He bent to my eye line. His face filled the world. "Listen, I'm here. I'm not leaving." "I know. We're not giving them anything." "I know. Don't let them take it. I can't keep him." "Don't say him. I can't keep it either." For 1 heartbeat, the building quieted to the size of our breath. Pressure settled in my spine, a hand knocking from the wrong side of the door. Mira touched my wrist and removed her fingers, like she'd taken a reading from my pulse and from the rooms. The frosted door opened. Light poured out like a clean flood. Voices waited inside, soft and obedient. Metal chimed like thin bells. The cries below sank and then returned like a tide. Silence cut, then stitched itself back. "Bring her," Varric said from within the white. The hand on the rail tightened. We rolled. Mark tried to slide between me and the door, and the driver's palm rose, not touching, just building a shape. Nurses placed themselves like commas, giving breath and stealing options. "Wait," Mark shouted, and the word broke on the frame. Arms circled him from both sides, not rough, not gentle, like sleep overtaking a body that can't hold itself upright anymore. Elena. I know. Elena. I know. My fingers found his sleeve and caught. Cloth, warmth, the shape of his arm. The grip on his shoulders tightened and he jerked against it like a swimmer caught by a current. Someone said nothing to him in a calm voice, many times. He twisted, a man thrown by a small wave with bad intentions, and the wave had hands. The door closed softly behind us. The room leaned forward like a ship, moving with the right wind. Straps that called themselves supports, weighted with friendly faces. Steel and glass and white reflected light until the air glowed. Beneath the floor, the small voices rose all at once, a gentle storm under our feet. A nurse guided the gurney up beside the bed and clicked a brake I felt in my teeth. Another lifted the soft band at my chest. Mira stood at my shoulder and breathed with me until our breaths matched. The driver settled near the door like a rule, and from the far side of the room, Varric stepped into view with that smooth economy of movement, eyes bright, the way water is bright when it reflects something sharp. "Welcome," he said, not loud, not soft. The word landed on the air and the air didn't dare move. Mark lunged as if a rope had finally pulled free, and two staff met him with polite strength. He fought in quick bursts, a man saving his last resource for the right second. His voice rasped against their sleeves. "Let her go. Let her go now." The room didn't raise its volume. It didn't need to. The machines murmured their numbers. The lights didn't flicker. The floor hummed with the breath of 100 small throats. A nurse rolled a cart into place with instruments that pretended to be ordinary. Another nurse set a metal bowl on a shelf. Another laid a folded blanket at the edge of the bed and smoothed the corner, as if neatness could save us. I raised my head and saw the ceiling halo around the light, soft and white as bone. The pressure inside me tightened, then eased, then tightened again, finding a rhythm not written in any book I had read. I reached for Mark and felt air. I reached for my belly and felt the small hand press back, firm, confident, certain of the room. "Stay," breathed the voice inside, and for the first time I understood it wasn't only asking. It was promising. "Straps," Mira whispered very close. "No," Mark shouted. "No straps." The soft band laid itself across my hips anyway, light as a hand that loved me. A second crossed my ribs, enough to remind me where I was. Leather buckles did not click. Nothing locked. It felt worse that way. Kindness can be a tighter bind. Mark jerked free for a breath and reached me. His fingers found mine. The world narrowed to skin. Under the floor, the baby cries rose like a tide finally peaking. Thin and layered and many. New voices practicing a life not yet here. The sound climbed my bones and settled behind my eyes. It was everywhere. It was under everything. It was the ground. Mark's grip broke as the staff flowed back around him. He thrashed once, twice, jaw clenched, eyes wild and clear. He shouted my name until it wasn't a name anymore. I looked at the ceiling because it was the only thing not moving, and let the small band hold me to the present as the gurney brake sighed, as the lights burned, as the cries below multiplied and rose like water, and as the door to the delivery suite slid wider on its quiet track to welcome us in. The delivery suite opened like a stage already lit. White that wasn't simple white, steel that held its breath, glass that wanted to be water. The tiles were a pale gray with a sheen that caught the eye and then let it go. If I didn't look straight at them, a faint lattice glowed beneath, lines and crescents and looping marks pressed under the glaze like ghosts of handwriting. Machines hummed in low, persuasive tones. Air moved through a ceiling vent with the soft resolve of a lullaby. Mira guided the gurney up beside the bed. The brake clicked under my spine. A nurse lowered the side rail. The mattress accepted my weight with the discretion of a confidant. Another nurse set a folded blanket at my feet and smoothed the corner with 2 fingers. The driver positioned himself by the door, the way a comma sits in a sentence. Mark strained against the hands holding him, then stilled, chest heaving, jaw tight. They didn't cuff him. 2 staff stood near his shoulders, with that polite strength clinic people learn from endless training videos. The art of giving you no good angle to push through. I want her upright. We'll raise the back. No straps. Support only. Don't touch her. We have to touch her. Mira met my eyes. Her calm didn't feel fake. It made me want to cry. Let's sit, Elena. Slow. The bed rose in a quiet arc. A soft band crossed my hips, low and loose, not a lock, a reminder. Another settled under my ribs like a hand that knew when to stop. I put my palm on the small swell and felt a firm answer from inside. A confident nudge that chose the center of the room and claimed it. The humming found a second tone under itself, a thread that tugged at the nerves along my jaw. The lights did not flicker. They deepened. The faint lattice under the tiles brightened, as if warmed by our breathing, then hid again. I couldn't tell if the symbols matched the crescent that had once marked my thumb. I didn't want to compare. Varric stepped from the far side, as if he had been part of the wall, and the wall had changed its mind. The light liked him in here. It learned his suit and his face, and wore both until they felt inevitable. Welcome. Leave, Mark breathed. We're present, Varric answered, voice low, and we will be careful. Elena, your body is already doing the work. Let us keep it steady. This isn't birth. It is arrival. Don't call it that. Words rarely matter to things that are happening. The pressure in my abdomen gathered and spread. Not pain yet. A steady organizing force, like hands aligning a tablecloth before a meal. Heat moved up my flanks and pooled at my sternum, then sank like a warm stone. Stay. The not voice breathed behind my eyes. I'm here. The machines adjusted their posture in response to the numbers they were reading. On a rolling cart, a lamp waited with its head bowed. When a nurse lifted it, the circle of light on the ceiling looked like a pale moon underwater. Another nurse unwrapped a pack of sterile cloths and folded them into neat quarters. A tray of instruments gleamed with straight lines and curves I didn't know the names of. Mark leaned forward against the quiet wall of hands. What are those? Preparation. For what? To keep her safe. Keep me with her. You are with her. I want you to leave. We'll be here. He looked like a man poised to bite. He didn't. His eyes found mine and held, anchor on anchor. Don't listen to him. I can't hear anyone but you. Varric stood within the spill of the lamp and spoke in a voice the room had been built to receive. What you asked for last year wasn't simply a child. You asked to end a kind of loneliness that had been eating holes in the world around you. You asked for an end to empty rooms. You asked to carry life that would not be taken away. No. You asked to be changed. I wanted my son. What you want and what you asked your body to become are not different things. We don't make monsters. We keep promises. No, Mark snapped. You keep product. We keep what the body agrees to keep. I felt the words land like feathered things. They slid over me and down the sides of the bed, and disappeared into the faint lattice under the tiles, which for a heartbeat showed itself again, brighter, as if language could wake old marks. The pressure tightened like a belt. I pushed my breath down into it and felt it answer with a satisfyingly orderly pushback. The band across my hips kept me from lifting into the movement. The limitation made the sensation more bearable, not less. A fresh line of warmth coursed across my belly, followed by a bright stripe of cold that could only be the touch of swab through cloth. No needles. None unless you ask. The swab passed again. Antiseptic rode the air. Under it lingered that almost sweet iron scent, the one that belonged to nights when storms skinned the road and left it steaming. My tongue found salt I hadn't eaten. The hunger inside me shifted from gnaw to hum. A window in the far wall was a rectangle of darker glass. On the other side, shadowed shapes gathered, unmoving. I knew the arrangement of posture without seeing their faces. Other couples, patients, observers. The shape of someone who had learned to lace their fingers over a roundness. The shape of someone whose hands hovered at the edge of their own ribs, because touching didn't help. "You don't bring them in here," Mark said, seeing where I looked. They asked to witness, for courage, for future, for community. They're props. They are proof. Of what? Of success. The word made me want to spit. Instead, the breath pulled low, involuntary, and the muscles below my navel answered with a push so practiced it felt like memory. A small hand pressed under my skin. Then another shape, round and hard, slid to where the light from the lamp warmed the thin wall between us. Mira placed her fingertips on the lower edge of my abdomen through the sheet, not pressing, just being there, and gave me a tiny nod, the kind you use with horses. "You're doing it." "I don't know how." "You don't need to know. You already are." Mark's voice softened around my name. "Look at me." I did. His face steadied the room. The straps felt less like rules and more like suggestions my body could accept or ignore. The humming of the machines arranged itself into a rhythm that almost matched my heart, until my heart decided to be faster. From the corridor came a steel whisper. Someone fumbled a latch. No one in the room turned to look. I saw only the wake of movement in a brushed steel cabinet door, the faint reflection of a man's shoulders. For a second, the reflection matched Mark, and my stomach attempted a small leap. Then the angle changed. Not him. Another staff shape. "We need more light," someone murmured. "No," Mark answered before they could touch the switch. "No more." "We have enough," Varric said. "We have what we need." "You don't have me. We have enough." The white beneath the tiles showed again, a map of curves and hooks that almost resolved into letters if I forced my eyes out of focus. When I looked straight, it vanished. Another wave came, and my body decided to cooperate without asking me first. The pressure wasn't teeth now. It was a deliberate crowding, as if an idea wanted to be in a room and the doorframe hadn't learned the idea's size. I tightened my grip on the sheet, and it whispered back like vinyl in summer. Mira's breath braided with mine. In, like filling a bowl. Out, like emptying one. Let it lift, then sink. I followed. The room followed me. The lamp's pale moon deepened. Behind the glass, the watching shapes leaned forward in perfect silence, then stayed, the way people hold still so a deer will trust them. Mark tested the wall of arms again, and this time slipped a shoulder through. One attendant moved to block. His foot caught the leg of a rolling cart, and the cart bumped the cabinet door. The door bounced, didn't latch, and hung open a finger's width. A line of the room beyond showed itself. A sink, a rack of clean metal, two tall glass cylinders filled with a dark fluid that drank the light and gave nothing back. What's that? Storage. For what? Instruments, preservation medium. What medium? The kind that keeps what matters stable. He looked to me as if to prove the sentence was about me. A nurse nudged the door closed with her hip. The latch clicked with a well-fed sound. I closed my eyes because the lights had slid a degree too bright, then opened them because behind my lids, the symbols under the floor were clearer, and I didn't want to meet them there. The not voice pushed gently. Stay. I'm here. Hungry. You had salt. More. No. Yes. The wave crested, and I felt the outline of a skull under my skin, impossibly delicate, impossibly sure, as if someone pressed a glass egg through a curtain, and the curtain tried to learn its shape. The skin stretched into an oval that made my breath break. It slid. It retreated. It pressed again, finding the same place I had been touching, the place that had begun to recognize my hand as a kind of window. Mark's voice reached for me like a rope. You're okay. I don't know. You are. He's... Don't. He is. Don't give them that word. It was too late. The mouth behind my eyes had already formed it in a shape that felt like a vow. He's ready, Varric murmured, and the room's stillness shivered as if someone had run a finger around the rim of a glass. I snapped my head toward him. Don't talk to me like you know him. I know what the body says when it approaches threshold. You have a script. You think scripts make births. No. Bodies make births. Scripts make people less afraid of what bodies do. Mark's hand found mine. He shoved through the small sea of sleeves and quiet intent and caught my fingers. The nurses flowed around him, but didn't pull him loose. For a heartbeat, his grip belonged to me alone. His skin was hot and shaking, and absolutely here. I saw something like a window open in the corner of the room. Not an actual window. The space behind a cart and a cabinet where the tile met the baseboard. A darker strip where air moved. It was nothing. It was a seam. It breathed. I heard a tiny sound from down by the floor that wasn't machine and wasn't person. A small, breathy giggle. The hair along my arms lifted. The chorus beneath us answered. Thin laughter weaving through thin cries like a string pulled quick through cloth. The not voice laughed, too. The sound ran up my spine like a zipper. No more, Mark told the room. Turn it off. Stop this. We can't turn off a body. You turned it on. We invited it. The wave turned meaner. It found a new edge. What had been pressure became pressure, plus heat, bright enough to make my teeth ache. My skin tightened, as though it belonged to someone else. The band over my hips kept me from running from myself. I pressed my forearm across my eyes and saw the symbols again, white lines curling, repeating. Not letters, instructions. A pattern a machine might read and call comfort. Hold, Mira whispered. I can't. Hold the breath around it. Don't hold the pain. Let the breath be the frame. Hot wetness broke along my side. Sweat, not blood. The lamp above vibrated 1 millimeter and then remembered to behave. The nurse with the bowl slid a hand under the sheet like she could catch anything that might fall out of me, and I wanted to slap her, and I wanted to kiss her palms, and I committed to neither because another push rose, and I rode it. Mark moved. In the looseness between two shoves, when the staff relaxed a fraction, he slipped. He ducked under one arm and snaked around the foot of the bed, and then he was gone from my sightline. The driver did not move. He pivoted with the accuracy of a weather vane and went after him without hurry. Mark. No answer. Metal clinked beyond the half-latched cabinet. A drawer whispered open. The soft swear that followed was human relief disguised as anger. He reappeared in my view with a small silver shape in his fist. Scalpel. An object too clean for this room, which had grown sticky with our heat. Don't, I breathed. We're leaving. You can't cut this out of me. I'll cut whatever I have to. A nurse stepped between him and my knees with the grace of a dancer, blocking a scene change. Stop. Move. Let him hold it, Varric said without looking. It's an anchor. Are you insane? Mark snarled. Insane would be letting you act without giving you a handhold. Hold it if you need to. Put it down when you see there's no enemy in the room but fear. There's a lot of fear. Yes. The skull shape pressed again, longer this time, the skin shining under the lamp, the line of veins around it darkening like ink drawn to a magnet. Tiny, precise handprints flared above my navel, 5 bulbs each, palms small as flower heads. They slid and blurred and resolved again a few inches away, as if 2 sets of instructions competed, and the stronger one refused to be rewritten. No. 1, I whispered. 1. Mira's voice matched the word to my breath. 1. The heel of a small foot raked across the inside, dragging a thin line that stung like a scratch. I hissed and bit back the sound. The nurse with the bowl took a step closer that no one needed and that we all accepted. What are the symbols? Mark asked abruptly, eyes cutting to the floor, as if to change the world by changing the subject. Old notations. Don't lie to me. They're guides, Mira said. Landmarks. Some women find comfort in patterns. They glow. Only when the room is ready. Ready for what? Holding. He laughed once, a sound broken into 3 pieces. He looked at me, then at the blade in his hand, then back at me. He lowered the point until it nearly touched the sheet. The tip trembled as if it were afraid of the fabric. The chorus under the floor brightened, not louder, closer. The frosted window shuddered with the breath of the watching bodies behind it. The lamp's pale moon narrowed a shade and focused. The pressure changed character into something that knew what it was doing. My breath grabbed at air, the way a person grabs at a railing when a bus takes a corner too fast. Now, Varric murmured, and the way he said it made my skin feel new. No, Mark answered on reflex. The push shoved my spine forward and my shoulders back. My mouth opened without my permission. The sound that came out was not a scream. It was the body's version of the word yes. Something inside me slid and then seized. A seam along my lower belly pinched and then released with a wet, soft sound, like tape peeling away from skin. Mark stepped in. The nurses flowed in. The room drew closer. I saw it happen the way a person sees lightning they were about to count. My skin split in a thin line low and a little left, not a bright human red, but a dark, starless color. It welled without spurt, thick as oil, almost blue where the lamp touched it, almost black where the tiles stole the light. It didn't smell like iron. It smelled faintly sweet and faintly like the air right before a thunderhead lets go. Stop, Mark yelled uselessly. His hand twitched with the blade and then stilled, refusing to shake near me. The first ribbon of fluid slid down my hip and found the sheet and became a stain the color of night water. Another ribbon followed. It gathered in the hollow near my hip bone, then overflowed, quiet as a secret, and rolled toward the tiles. The symbols beneath the glaze glowed up into it like stars seen through deep water. The liquid reached them, and the light inside the lines shifted, not brighter, but awake. The glow moved along the pattern faster than the spill, like whispers racing ahead down a corridor. "Lights," someone said. "Don't touch them," Varric warned, calm and sharp at once. "Let the room learn." The fluid kept coming. Not a gush, a constant pour, as if a reservoir in me had found the door it had been scratching at. My skin didn't tear wider. It held its neat, obscene seam, lips parted just enough to keep speaking. Warmth ran down my flanks. My thighs grew slick. The bed accepted it with professional lack of offense. The tile took it and turned into a shallow pool that reflected the lamp so that I was lying under a moon and over a night. The smell increased by a shade. Sweet. Rain iron. Milk burned on the bottom of a pan. Somewhere behind the glass, a woman sobbed once, small and strangled, then pressed her hand to her mouth, as if that could erase sound that had already been born. Mark hovered knee-deep in my ruin and refused to move. The scalpel stayed in his fist, useless and dangerous. His other hand went to my cheek, and he held my face like it was the last warm thing he owned. "Stay with me. I'm here. Don't go anywhere. Where would I go?" His eyes shone with fury he couldn't spend. He turned to the staff with a mouthful of words and found none he could stand to use. He looked back at me and shook his head once, helpless, an entire apology compressed into one small movement. The room's hum found a third tone. The lamp stuttered a heartbeat, then steadied. The tiny light above the door waned and brightened in a rhythm that matched something under the floor. The chorus of baby sounds braided itself into a pattern, not song, not chant, but something a body could trust if it needed to. I felt my own pulse try to match it, and fail, and then try again. "Enough," Mark said, and he sounded like a man drowning who decides to punch the sea. He lifted the blade. "No." I wasn't sure if it was my voice or the room's. His arm stopped. The knife point hovered over the place where the seam had opened, over the lake black shining there. He trembled. He lowered the knife to the tile instead and pressed the point into grout. He left a small, angry nick that healed itself in front of us as the dark fluid moved over it. Someone turned a dial. The lamp's pale circle narrowed to a coin, then widened to a plate, then steadied as if it had chosen. The seam opened a shade more, and the fluid answered, as if cued. It passed under me to the floor in a ribbon that thickened into a sheet. The sheet became a pond. The pond touched the base of the cabinet and lapped like the sea. It climbed an inch up steel that had never expected tide. The faint writing beneath the tile flashed in a new sequence, like light on rails. The overhead lights flickered once, twice. The room breathed. The machines dropped volume to a near whisper, and then cut. Not dead, holding their breath. Someone swore in a voice too calm to belong to panic. The tiny light above the door fluttered like a moth around a porch bulb and went out. Dark fell fast and complete. Not absence, presence. The glow under the tile remained, and the liquid held the reflected lamp like a coin in its mouth. And somewhere beyond, the window crackled with the sound of breath hitting glass. Mira's hand found my wrist in the dark and pressed exactly once. The chorus under the floor held steady, softer now, closer now, as if the 100 small throats had turned inward to listen instead of call. In the new night, the seam in me wasn't visible, but I could feel the cool between my skin edges, and the small deliberate movements below, and the certainty with which the thing I had asked for moved toward air. Dark poured into the room as if someone had tipped the world. The glow under the tiles held, a faint map breathing beneath us. The black flood around my hips spread and cooled. Air pressed low, sweet with a hint of rain. The chorus beneath the floor gathered itself. All those tiny throats turned inward, listening. 3 points touched inside me at once, not a hand, a learning shape. The seam parted with a soft kiss. Warmth slid over my skin, thick as syrup. The lamp coin in the ceiling flickered, steadied, made a pale moon on the ceiling. I felt Mark's breath against my cheek. I'm here. Don't let go. I won't. Wet whispered through the dark. A nurse came closer and stopped, held by an order no one spoke. The liquid climbed the legs of the bed and held, as if gravity had been given new rules. You are safe, Elena, came Varick's voice from beyond the lamp's circle. Keep breathing into the pull. Let him choose his path. Stop using that word. Language follows bodies, not the other way around. The pressure narrowed, found center. The skin over my lower belly thinned to a tight window. A ridge rose beneath it, a knuckle under fabric. Push, rest, push again, more sure. A new sound rose, not the choir below. A single voice, high and thin, breath catching on the edge of a mouth that hadn't decided its shape yet. It made the hair at my neck lift. If it hurts you, I end this. Don't. I can't watch them take you. They aren't taking me. Then what are they doing? Finishing. The ridge pressed hard. The seam opened another breath. The liquid smelled sweeter, then cool, a clean bite that reached my teeth. My breath broke. The lamp narrowed to a saucer and poured light into the small hill of my belly. Under the stretched skin, I saw a shadow of brow, the suggestion of lids, the soft curves of cheeks, the hint of a mouth that was not yet a mouth. No. He pressed again with a practiced insistence older than the room. Under my palm, the shape found me and pushed into my hand like a trusting animal. More black spilled. The tile welcomed it and flickered as if a circuit closed. You're doing it, Mira breathed near my ear. I don't know how. You already are. The ridge softened. Slickness slid across the seam. A membrane parted. The room inhaled without sound. A small shape eased into the pool between my hips and lay there an instant, haloed by lamp and tile glow. It twitched like a question. Light touched it and tricked my eyes into choosing, and the choice changed every second. Newborn blue-gray skin, coated in syrup-dark fluid, limbs curled in the tight, protective posture I had memorized from pictures. Fingers unfurled, nails flashed, thin and too neat. The face turned a degree. For a breath, it had the round, awful beauty of every new life. Then the mouth opened too far. Teeth gleamed, a neat row of white seeds, meant for the smallest throats. The eyes caught the lamp and shone like an animal in brush. Lids fell. The mouth softened back. A cry came again. Two voices layered, almost in tune. Hands around the room shifted without stepping. A nurse knelt with her palms up as if offering. Another lowered a clean cloth. The black fluid beaded on the cloth and slid away, as if the fabric were waxed. It soaked nothing. Hello, Varick said softly. Welcome. Don't touch him. He is not mine to touch. He kicked once, water bug fast, and the pool moved to hold him, buoying a head that hadn't learned its weight. Tiny fingers flexed. The palm pressed against air, as if air had substance it could push. 5 dots of dark appeared on the sheet where the hand fell. The cloth absorbed nothing. The dots sank and vanished, as if the fabric had opened a mouth. The frosted window lost its frost. Faces swam behind it. Other couples pressed forward, eyes bright and damp. Some smiled, some held still, bodies trained to reverence. A woman lifted her fingers toward the glass and stopped. Breath fogging little ovals. Perfect, someone whispered, growing stronger every day. I wanted to throw something. I wanted to beg for help. I wanted to drop to my knees and pray. The impulses braided and strangled each other. The small body tried to roll. The pool lifted, offering. It turned its face from the black to the air, and the air felt new in my mouth, just watching it. Elena, hold him, Mira said. My hand moved. Mark grabbed my wrist on reflex. No, I have to. He'll hurt you. He's mine. He let go like a man whose grip had been pried from a ledge. I slid both hands under the small shoulders. The fluid clung and then gave. Weight settled into my palms, skin soft as breath and too cool. His back arched, a full body shiver. Fingers wrapped my thumb in a grip that held all my years at once. I lifted. Thin strings of black stretched between us and snapped without sound. The lamp brightened a shade to meet us. The syrup ran down my wrists and didn't drip, held by a physics I didn't know. The small face tilted up, lids heavy, mouth opening in that split cry. Two voices, one body. Hello. The mouth softened, the cry gentled. He nuzzled my wrist for a heartbeat, nose cold, searching, and something in my chest unhooked and fell and filled. I would have given him anything. Salt, breathed the not voice. No. Salt. Mark's hand hovered, the other still holding a scalpel as if it were part of him. He saw it in the lamp's reflection, flinched, lowered the blade as if the tiny eyes could see through lids. Don't you dare, he whispered. A towel appeared. The syrup laughed at it and slid back into the pool. The towel stayed white, wrong as snow in summer. You can't hold him in that. It's poison. It's him. No. It's how he breathes. The small mouth opened wider. Teeth showed again, neat and impossible. The head turned toward my chest. A low hum vibrated my wrist bones. Bring him to you, Mira urged. Mark moved to block. The driver's stance shifted, polite, making a wall. The nearest nurse cleared space with two small movements. Don't, Mark said, to everyone and to God. He is learning, Varric murmured. The way to keep him from breaking the world is to give him what he asks for. And if what he asks for is wrong, then we measure wrong by how much ruin it makes, and we stop it. I am not in love with ruin. He mouthed at the cotton, frustrated. I fumbled the dress, fingers slippery. He latched on fabric and found nothing and punished the failure with a small angry cry that sounded like a string snapped. I know. I slid the fabric aside. Air went cold. The lamp's heat could not keep up. The syrup left the smallest stain where it touched pale. The tiny mouth found me as if pulled by a wire. It latched. The first pull was light, a kitten's test. Then it deepened. A sound left me that didn't belong to fear or pleasure. The pull turned rhythmic, older than any room. It hurt. It helped. I bent around it and cried, because it was everything I had wanted, and nothing I had imagined. Mark looked like a man being flayed. He lifted the blade, point trembling. He lowered it, lifted again. Don't, please. He stared at the small ear, the fingers, the neat teeth pressing skin, and made a human sound that belongs only to rooms where you cannot fix the person you love. The staff began to hum, not prayer, a tone that held a path. It threaded under the lamp and the tile glow and the far-off choir beneath the floor. The air thickened with it. "Kneel," someone breathed, and nurses sank without being told. Their heads bowed and lifted with the rhythm of the pull. The driver stood guarding the only candle in a storm. Varric stepped half a pace closer and stopped at the invisible line his roll drew. "Not just yours," he whispered. "A god meant for the world. Mine. He is yours as a river is yours when you live beside it. You drink, you praise, you drown if you forget." The small mouth opened wider than it should. My skin stretched and held, teeth grazed and tested. Fear and awe braided inside me, too close to pain. Words dissolved. "Stop," Mark said, voice breaking. He chose. The blade rose. The lamp stuttered and steadied. A ripple moved through the pool from the tiny spine, a small tide. The nearest nurse set her hand in the liquid to steady what could not be steadied. The black reached up around her wrist like thin tongues. When she drew back, the ring it had touched shone and then sank into her skin, leaving it pale and smooth, polished from within. She looked at her wrist, smiled a private smile, bowed her head. "No." Mark moved. He slid through the polite hands with a burst of rage harvested from a year of bad news. He came low, blade close, the killing motion small and mean. He raised his arm. Another hand caught his wrist. Not the driver, not a nurse. Varric. Fingers closed just below the old bike scar. The grip wasn't strong. It was exact. It stopped the arm without tearing the choice from it. Don't do something you cannot take back. "Let me go." "When you put it down." "Move." The pull at my chest went on, wire through my heart. Sleep crept up my spine like a blanket. The lamp haloed everything too clearly for an instant, then softened. The room dimmed around the edges until it felt like a dream that refused to end. "Take it," Mark pleaded, voice shredded. "Take it away from her." "No, please." "No." His arm shook. The scalpel point quivered over the place where the seam had opened. He lowered the knife to the tile instead and pressed. The point nicked grout. The nick sealed as the black slid over it, an erasure in slow motion. The tiny faces behind the glass fogged the pain. The tile map pulsed like a heart. The pool lapped the base of the bed and withdrew, learning wall. The lamp narrowed and spread, a pulse of its own. The lights blew. Dark fell, complete and heavy. The glow under the tiles remained. The pool held the lamp like a coin and let it go. The baby voices below rose into a long exhale of listening. "Elena, I'm here. I love you. I know." In the dark, the mouth found me again with a surety that made me shake. The pull burned and soothed. The room held breath. Cloth shifted. Someone whispered a word no language owned. The lamp spat back on in a burst. For a frozen sliver, I saw everything too sharply. The small face latched and sucking. The neat white edge at my skin. The black shine across both of us. Mark on his knees, fists clenched, eyes wet and furious. Nurses kneeling in an arc like attendants at a crown. The driver standing with open palms. Varric's smile half-born, bright and private. Sure he had delivered not a child, but a future. Mark lunged. The staff surged. The baby fed. My mouth opened. The light died again. Not a flicker, but a fall. Darkness dropped like a curtain, thick as velvet. And the room, the river, the voices, the world all took one shared breath and held it.